I I guess I owe a bit of an apology because I this is like a 30-minute notice I was going to do this show. I don't really expect very many people to listen to this show, because of that. I I wanted to do this show because I think there's a need for it. Um, Life has a way of tying a lot of things together. Like, for example, tonight or this afternoon, I'm going to be talking about uh, some of the viewpoints expressed by myself and others. We were talking about the N word being used, of course, with the whole Michael Richards slash Kramer guy using it um, on one of his stand-ups when he basically lost his mind and just went on a rant. Um, I thought I will start by um, playing two radio segments um, that were about the discussion of this word, about what happened with Michael Richards and everything. Now, people are like, well, what does that have to do with AlphaISM Radio? What does that have to do with the fighting game community? It does. DSP told me, earlier today that he quit Team Hate. And um, I was sort of surprised. I was asking him why, and he gave me a link, and it basically explained some things that he saw that he did not agree with, and he did not want to be no longer associated with. And on top of that, I'd also want to revisit something that happened in an earlier show between Mukai and Flash G. And also, I want to talk about the experience that I had. Not I had. The experience I talked about with Wild Kitty, because you see, all of this is actually linked together. The N-word, the DSP Team Hate, leaving Team Hate and Team Hate in general. All this has a lot to do with each other in the sense that I see a single thread that runs through all of these type of conversations. So, to begin off, and, before you think I'm crazy, I'm going to go ahead and play you two segments. Now, on the first segment, I don't know who this lady is, but she's a black lady. You can tell that much, and she's very pissed, obviously, at the use of the N-word by Michael Richards. My viewpoint on it has changed just a bit, softened a bit. I thought that Michael Richards is a racist, and I'm not sure that he isn't now. My viewpoint has softened just a bit because I'm going to take some other things into an account. Now, what does this have to do with Team Hate, and what does this have to do with the fighting game community? It really has a lot to do with it, because it's about. You know what? I'm not going to get to that. I'm going to get to that a little bit later, actually. Anyway, so the first up is the clip that this lady. Now, listen. Obviously, this lady is, she ain't too happy about what's going on, and and she lets it be known. So, here we go again.
This is News and Notes. I'm Farai Chidea, and that music was just taking me back. It was BDP, KRS-One, who we just heard. The bridge is over. Anyway, moving along on today's roundtable, we're talking about dropping the N-bomb from the entire language, and Ford Motor Company takes a huge financial gamble. So joining us in our New York bureau is Walter Field, CEO and publisher of NorthstarNetwork.com, and at NPR headquarters in Washington, D.C., economist and author Julianne Malveaux, president and CEO of Last Word Productions, Incorporated. She's also there with Ron Christie, vice president of the lobbying firm D.C. Navigators, and former deputy assistant to Vice President Dick Cheney. Welcome, and we're going to try to keep this portion of the show relatively clean, folks. Julianne, I got to start with you. When you heard Paul Mooney saying that he's a recovering N-wordaholic, and then you hear KRS-One, who considers himself a hip-hop historian as well as a rapper, saying, you know what, this is language, and what we do is we play with language.
You know, I think Ron Christie would have to describe to you my physical reaction to the entire segment, which was very physical. I had to take my shoes off and sort of walk around. To hear the word, here's what my problem is, Farai. Michael Richards did not just use the N-word about 10 times, but he also visually invoked a lynching. He talked about someone hanging from a tree with a pitchfork up their rear end. And I am very disappointed at all of our national commentators for focusing on the N-word and not on the continuum. Because when you focus on the continuum, you understand what the N-word opens up the door for. In other words, how dare this white boy, and I said white boy, who's what? He's 50-ish, so he's in my generation. Did not grow up in Mississippi. He does not have this experience, so how has he incorporated this history into his life and to use that as a scourge on black people in his audience who are doing what people in comedy clubs do? They clown. That's why you go to comedy clubs, to clown. I mean, you don't go to comedy clubs to behave, you go to act like an idiot. Well,
Okay, I'm sorry. I have to stop it right here. I will be doing this from time to time. Everyone knows. I hope most of you know that I'm black. So, so I'm gonna. So obviously, I have a few things to say about the situation. But in this instance, she's full of shit, and I'm gonna tell you why. You go to a comedy club to listen to whoever is giving the comedy routine, whether it's one person or 20 people. You don't go there to act a fool. You're not the show. You're not part of the show. You are a spectator. You keep your mouth closed, in the sense that you don't interact, you don't get involved. You do not involve yourself in the act. If you're not part of the crew, then you have no right to open your mouth. So no, I don't buy the audience. I don't buy this argument, I'm sorry, that you go there to clown. You go there to have a good time, yes, by laughing and everything going on. But heckling is something totally different. See, she's using this argument saying she's trying to brush under the carpet that Michael Richards was being heckled. Which, of course, you're right. It is nothing new. It is nothing new that comedians are heckled. They're made fun of. It's like, however, that does not make it right. And see, that's what ultimately this is going to come down to, right or wrong. Two wrongs don't make it right. She brushes that to her side. She basically tries to say, yeah, people go there to act fools. Not exactly. Maybe you go there to act a fool, but I go there to get entertained. I paid money. I'm there to be entertained by the person or people on stage, not by the audience members. All right. So I'm just want to say that before we continue on. Let me go ahead with this.
Let me just bring up what Paul Mooney said, which is that he said when KRS-One said, this is just language and we can use it however we want. Paul Mooney said, you're not from the lynching generation, which is what I hear you saying now. So do you think it's really
But it's not even a generational thing, Farai, because guess what? Lynching is history. It's black history. You cannot clean up that history. I heard the KRS-One brother talking about, well, you can defuse. I had asked your producer to pull up a book. Some African brother has written this book called Capitalist N-Word, The Road to Success, in which he excoriates black people because we're not economically correct enough. And a friend of mine sent me the book. I'm about to slap her. But in any case, people use the word to shock, but the fact is that the word is part of a historical continuum, which was extraordinarily painful to us.
Walter, let me bring in Walter, because it is part of a historical continuum, and it is part of,
All right. Pause again. Paul Mooney makes a good point, and that's a point that I made all my adult life. Not a black person living today in this country has been alive during the slavery period back before, of course, the Civil War that ended it. All right. So she brushes that to the side. She says, well, I'm black. I should be offended by this. In other words, and I got the right, to voice my opinion, and, you should listen to me. However, if you look at the records, the genealogical records, you will find that the majority, if you look back far enough, the majority of whites that are now living have ancestry that is not purely white, that goes back to Indian, but there are white people, and a lot of them, that had ancestors that were slaves. See, she doesn't address that point. See, if I were to go get somebody who was a descent, actually, if you listen a little bit more to this segment, you're going to find out that there is a dude on there who's white, whose ancestors is from the was in slavery. So that means, but she wouldn't give him the time of day because he's white, so he could never understand. That's like what she's saying now. He can't never understand. Oh, but he might, because that's his family. She can't identify one single family member that's been lynched. But I bet that this dude says he can. So anyway, like I said, we'll continue listening, but still, she's on the other end of the spectrum, and we'll get into this more. All right, hold on.
Painful, violent history, but I remember reading Eleanor Holmes Norton's autobiography or biography, and in it are some old memoirs of hers that were incorporated into the book in which she uses the N-word. And I can't think of someone more intelligent, more forthright, more pioneering, as, someone who was a litigator and who's now sitting in Congress. So what does that say?
Well, I think many people have slipped up and used the word, but it's not about language at all. It's about identity. And we have to not focus so much on the word, but the historical context of the word and what generally followed the use of that word, which was violent episodes that were based upon white privilege. So to hear someone try to explain it away, to say that there is a derivative of this word that is acceptable because it has some meaning within an artistic construct, I totally disagree. I don't think you can get away from the history of the word and what that word means in terms of negative identity in this country. So when you hear it used by a Michael Richards or by a comic, any other comic on the stage, black or white, I think we have to be truthful about what this word means. And I think, this is probably one of the most important conversations we can have in the black community right now, because it really talks about who we are as a people and how we perceive ourselves. So, I welcome the debate between sort of hip-hop and older generation and those of us who sort of are sandwiched in between the hip-hop generation, older generation. I was getting my swerve on when I heard BDP, but, some of us are very concerned about how this word has now come back into fashion by us.
Yeah, and maybe more so than ever. I mean, when I think about the era in which Richard Pryor was using the N-word, I think that it was used a lot less than it is now in terms of popular discourse. Ron, I want to bring you in on a personal level. You have a child or children, is that correct?
No, actually, not yet.
Oh, not yet. Okay, I misunderstood. Well, I asked a question that didn't make air of the two panelists, that if they had, say, an 8-year-old in their life, what would they tell them the word meant? And we didn't have time to run that, but it seems to me that a lot of this is about a dialogue with kids, with teens, and you can't just, in my experience, say, okay, don't do this, because that's kind of like putting the warning stickers on the records. It's like, oh, great, I know which ones to buy. So how do you, Ron, bring this up in a context with people who might not have the same sense of history?
Well, I'm a direct descendant from slaves. My great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, I should say, were in the slavery area. My grandparents still own the piece of property that was a slave plantation. And you can bring it up, as Walter suggests, in a historical context. When this whole first piece started, Julianne Malveaux and I, sitting in Washington, we were steamed. Why are we steamed? Because it seems to me we have gotten away from the pain of slavery. We've gotten away from what has happened, how African Americans have been systematically discriminated against in this country. And you have Dr. Martin Luther King standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial and saying that we should be judged by the content of our character and not the color of our skin. And yet, looking at what happened with Michael Richards, looking at what happened with some of our hip-hop individuals, they seem to glorify this word, or they seem to think that it's no big deal. It is a disgusting word. It is an important part of our history.
All right, okay. I'm no fan, everyone that knows. I'm no fan of what Michael Richards says, but I wouldn't say he was glorifying the word. In a sense, I think he was using it as it was originally was used. He was using it as a means of insulting hecklers happen to be black people. You know, him using the way that he's using it, and the way that hip hop artists and other black comedians would use it, that's two different things. However, we're going to get into it later. That doesn't make it right, though. But I just wanted to make that kind of a distinction, though, because that's not really, that's really not really comparable. There's two different things. But we'll go on.
As Walter and Julianne have pointed out, for where we have been as a people, but we need to move away from that, and we need to move toward a system where we are looked at based upon our intelligence, based upon our creativity, just as opposed to looking at some word that is used for a very painful and a very, very racist way of looking at a group of people.
All right, well, we're going to move away from this topic, which has, of course, been something that's consumed us in recent weeks. All
right, that is the end of the first segment. All right. The second segment I'm going to play is actually the interview with Paul Mooney. And I thought this was a pretty cool interview. Ski posted the link for it earlier. Because, you know, earlier today I was arguing about it in Capcom, and I was basically stating that I think the dude is racist because, not just because he used the N-word, but because, you know, like, he was depicting lynching, you know. So, now, stepping back out of that for a second, I realized that is sort of hypocritical because, see, I had one time I was speaking with Wild Kitty, and he was mugged by black people, and he called them niggers, you know. Now, in that instance, I told him, no, I wouldn't get mad at that because you were mad, you know, and I mean they were robbing you. That's a little bit different. I mean, when you're mad, you're apt to say things to hurt people. I mean, that's just how it comes out. And so I'm like, so I wouldn't hold him accountable. I wouldn't go around saying he's a racist because he called two black people that were robbing him niggers. I mean, that's not really being fair, you know. But I guess after reflecting on it a minute, I would have to admit, or at least the possibility that that Michael Richards falls under a similar scenario where he was being heckled on stage and he hasn't done, you know, stand-up comedy in a very long while because of, you know, Seinfeld. So, you know, him getting heckled, I guess it got to him more than it would to other, you know, comedians who deal with it, you know, week in, week out. So obviously he got mad and he left, you know, he just basically lost his mind and started going in his tirade. Am I totally convinced he's not a racist? Not really. My viewpoint is this. If I was on stage and I was a comedian and I was getting heckled by white people, I would not call them crackers or hunkies. I mean, I have never called a white person a cracker or a hunky. It's never really, I've never done it. My mom, which, you know, she has race issues of her own, she doesn't even use the word. I mean, it's just not, not a word that's to be used. So, my whole argument was, if he really wasn't racist, it seems kind of convenient that he would pull out something like that, you know, when he was being heckled by black people, you know. But Skeek made a good point. He says, well, it's just like being backed into a corner, and then you just do whatever you can to survive. And I see what he's saying, you know. It's just the way that he said it, not so much what he said. The way he said it leads me to believe that there's more to that than it is. But also, you know, I was thinking, you know what, man, if I was ever a fan of Seinfeld, I'll burn all the DVDs I have or take them back and try to get my money back or whatever, you know. But then I realized that let's get into something else. Actually, let me go ahead and start playing this Paul Mooney interview, and then after that, then we can start talking about what I really want to talk about. All right, this is Paul Mooney.
Paul Mooney has been making audiences laugh for more than 20 years, often in some very uncomfortable ways. A comedy writer for groundbreaking shows like Sanford and Son, Good Times, and Chappelle's Show, he wrote many of the late comedian Richard Pryor's edgiest sketches, some of which included liberal use of our ugliest racial slur. Pryor changed his mind about that word later on. Mooney continued to use it. Then last week, comedian Michael Richards unleashed a shocking tirade at an African-American hecklers at a comedy club. In the uproar that followed, African-American leaders, including Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, called on black people to stop using the word. And Paul Mooney, who once said, "It has no meaning to it anymore, I love it," decided to eliminate it from his act. If you have questions about Paul Mooney's decision, our number here in Washington is 800-989-8255. That's 800-989-TALK. You can also send us email, talk@npr.org. Paul Mooney's here in Washington, D.C. to perform at the Lincoln Theater this weekend, and he joins us here in Studio 3A today. Thanks very much for coming in.
My pleasure.
Why the change of heart?
Well, it was, you got to remember that the first stand-up to deal with this word was Dick Gregory, who I'm working with at the Lincoln Theater, 2 shows, 8 and 11. And to deal with the word, they wrote a book and they talked about it. And also, Lenny Bruce had a part in it, too. When I was like about 16, I saw Lenny Bruce taken away out of a nightclub in handcuffs, and for using words. Anyway, the times are different, and well, we're here now. But anyway, so Richard Pryor was the first stand-up to stand up against the word and say, "Let's not say the word." He had went to Africa, and he had came back and he had told me, because we were very close friends, and that he wasn't using the word because he had been in Africa. He hadn't even thought about the word. He hadn't seen any in people the N-word in Africa, and so he wasn't going to ever do it again. He had made that speech, and I said, "Well, that's you. You're your own person. That's your decision, and I'm going to use it." And I couldn't see the forest for the N-word, and I had an affair with the word. I was romancing it. I was married to the word, and that was then. And now it's time to divorce the word. And what brought me to this, because I never thought I'd live to see myself say this, and it shows you how it changes. Things can change. And when I was called about Michael, who I've known for a long time.
Michael Richards.
Yeah, over 20 years. And we don't want to get it mixed up with Michael Jackson or Michael anybody else. Anyway, you're right. You're great. We don't want. There's so many of them. Michael Richards. When I first heard about it, because I've known him for over 20 years, he never showed me that side of him, or he had that kind of thing in him. And I said, no, it's got to be more layers to this than what everyone's saying. It can't be this obvious. And when I saw the video, I mean, I'm not easily shocked. I went into shock. And it was the first time, because I'm usually inside of myself looking out. This time I had an out-of-body experience. I was outside of myself, looking at me and looking at the word. And it was such a weapon. It was such a nuclear, like it was a weapon. It was just, I don't ever want anybody to have that power again, and also I thought about it, and it's become an equal opportunity word, because little Asian kids are using it, little white kids are using it, little Latin kids are using it, little black kids are using it, and I don't want that to be that. And I actually saw the monster for the first time, the horror in it, and he kept saying it, and mentioning slavery and upside down and naked and pitchforks and all this other crazy stuff, and I felt like I was in a Klan meeting or in some Twilight Zone, and it really wasn't him, it was the devil. I mean, all kinds of things went through my head. And I just said, well, I'm not going to be a part of this. He was actually my Dr. Phil. He cured me. And so I went and I had a private meeting with him in a hotel. And he was very glad to see me. He thought, first of all, I was going to curse him out or get on him or whatever and do something. And, and I just gave him hard love. And I understood it. And being a comic, it's not all black and white, and everyone is right there from black and white. Their response to him, I mean, they want him deported, they want him horsewhipped, they want all these things done. They want him to pay money. I said he should give up a liver, but no, but these horrible things that they want done. I couldn't believe that these human beings have no forgiveness. I mean, the deed has been done. You can't beat a dead horse, and you got to take a lemon and make lemonade, and you try to heal and give love. He's a human being, and he wasn't responsible by himself. Our society's responsible too. They got to take responsibility.
Okay, just to stop him a bit there. He hit the word. He hit it right on the head. It's like there's no forgiveness. There's no love. There's just there's just animosity and hatred. And that is how it ties in to the other topics I was going to talk about, with team hate and so forth and so on. Because it really is the same thing. So I'll go ahead and let this continue. But he makes a very good point. So let me go ahead.
And I got to take responsibility because I was out there, whether good, bad, or indifferent. I was saying it made me a part of it too, and I understood that. And being a comic, he had been out of that arena for 6 years. He had been the darling of the discotheque for TV, and they had all been kissing his butt. And, he's getting all this instant love. And as a comic, and he does what he does very well. He had come back in the arena. Things had changed. Words had changed. And he wanted that instant love. He didn't get it. So he was trying to be me. He was trying to be Lenny Bruce. He had mentioned me on stage. He was trying to find himself in a lot of things. And then the audience, they went after him, told him he wasn't funny. Now, just looking at that to a regular person, you're not funny, you've never been funny, that doesn't mean anything. Well, you have to accept hecklers. To a comic who wants love, that's like talking about their mother is a hooker, and it's horrible to them.
Yeah.
So he fought back. He reached in the depths of hell to reach up to try to hurt back. He tried to do that, okay? Then he got carried away and he flipped out. He actually had a breakdown, and there was layers of it, okay? And now he knows his demons, and he can be cured, And I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I've been there, done that. So I can. But what I'm saying is, we have to bury that word, and whether it's with an A or an E or whatever it is, it's a Reynolds wrap. It's a done deal. I'm never saying that again on stage, and I'm never saying the B word again.
Mm-hmm. A couple of questions. You mentioned Lenny Bruce earlier, and one of the reasons he used profanity. I know you've spoken about this, so not surprising you.
Oops, sorry. This one thing. This is something that Nila really got. I didn't know this the first time around, but when I listened to it the second time around, not only is he saying he's not going to use the word nigger anymore, he's not going to use the word bitch anymore. And he realizes, like I have realized it, that this word has become becomes nigger for females. It really has. It has become a derogatory word for females. Now the word isn't new, obviously, but the word has taken on a life of its own within the last, let's say, 20 years. Let's look at the Chappelle Show. I think that this is one of the reasons why Chappelle left the show. Is because I think he believed that he was adding to the stereotype. He was trying to make fun of it so it wouldn't, be so hurting, but he realizes that he's just feeding a monster. So I think that's part of the reason why he got out. I'm going to tell you an experience. Monday night, when I was walking home from an interview with the Bank of America, there was one of those storm of the century storms that we had here in Seattle. We got hit with a thunderstorm with hail, sleet, and snow. It paralyzed the city, And I was walking home in this mess, all right, because my car got repossessed. When I was walking home, I'm walking up a very steep incline. There's a very steep incline going to the street that eventually connects to the street that my apartment is on. When I was walking up that very steep incline, there were people, of course, trying desperately to, get up the hill with their cars, but because they don't have the proper tires, because their tires are worn out and bald, they could not get up. They could not get up the street. Anyway, I thought that it might be a good idea if I go get some something to eat, because there was a 7-Eleven there, and I was getting short on food. So I walked over to 7-Eleven, and while I was walking over there, I passed by a black couple, young black couple, and I guess the guy was in the driver's seat, the girl was in the passenger seat, and they was getting out. And the black guy said something, and the girl's like, "Yeah, I heard you, nigga." She just said what she said. See, that's what I'm talking about, because it's become to the point where we have a derogatory term for almost every single division that there is. And so, I noticed that, like, in the Chappelle Show and all this stuff, it's not just about the N-word, nigga or niggers. It's about bitches now, girls don't get called girls anymore on women. They're bitches now. And you know why? You know why that word is used, besides the fact that it's derogatory? The word is used because to a lot of guys, That's what they think of women as bitches, as female dogs. With the only exception being that they're human, not real dogs. But they still serve a purpose, as in they're a pet. They're there to entertain you. And that is how a lot of guys view females. Now, before I go off here on the tirade of my own and explain how that's wrong, people who find that word not that offensive or don't see anything wrong with it, see, that's easy for you to say as a young person. But when you have children and when you have a daughter and you somehow walk by and you hear her boyfriend call your daughter a bitch, or just have her boyfriend like, yeah, I love these bitches and blah blah, then all of a sudden you want to get mad about it. You know, there is some hypocrisy there. You know, so this is just my own personal viewpoint on that, and we'll get more into it after the interview. But let me go ahead and continue on with the interview. All right.
This was he was trying to rob these words of their power. If
yeah,
he did
him
not
too.
mention them in public,
and he was mentioning racial words.
Yes, and racial words too.
And it was driving people crazy. They had this movie and all said, oh, they just loved him. They didn't love him.
No, he caused a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, his theory was that you rob these words of their power if you use them in public.
That was then, and it is. But now it's a different world, and we have to end it. You understand? And I understood all of that. Mm-hmm. But we've got to take a stand about this, and everyone thinks it has to be majority rules, but that's not true. A majority can be a lynch mob. You know, you have to take one person can change the history. Rosa Parks changed it. It wasn't Rosa Parks and her cousins. Mm-hmm. You know, and I mean, it's like we've had people in history. One person can change stuff. It really can. Harriet Tubman. It wasn't Harriet Tubman and her sisters. It was Harriet Tubman. Mm-hmm. You have to take a stand, and I've taken that stand, and I just hope people can hear me and feel it and see it. I never thought I'd say this.
Yeah, but you were quoted once as saying, you know, would it be all right if a white person used this word? And you said, sure, it would be all right because I like a little salt on my cracker, which is a funny line.
Yeah, this is a very funny line. I mean, I can be funny, very funny, when I want to be. But
well, take your word for it.
Yeah, I'll take my word for it. Yeah, please do. But it's like, you can tell racial jokes and you can say things, but there's a way to tell them. So I've changed everything around. You know, I put it around, and funny is funny. Can I tell you a racial joke? Sure. All right. A white woman was baking a little chocolate cake for her son, a little white son. She turned her back, and he took the chocolate cake and he put it on his face, and he said, "Look, Mommy, I'm black." Now, I would have used the N-word, and the mother slapped him. Okay, but now I'm using black. The mother slapped him and said, "Don't ever say that in this house, and go tell your father what you said. Go, look, Daddy, I'm black." And the father slapped him. "Don't ever say that in this house. Go tell your grandfather what you said." He said, "Grandpa, I'm black." The grandpa slapped him. He said, "Don't say this. Go back to your mother." So the mother said, "Look, sit down, Timmy. What have you learned today?" He said, I've been black for 5 minutes. Already I hate you white people." So it's very funny. And you can be funny without the N-word. So, I mean,
so it's not going to change your routine that much.
No, funny's funny. I mean, that's what people hear because it's with the shock value and all this other insanity. So it's insane, and we have to be cured.
Mm-hmm. Let's see if we can get some listeners involved in this conversation. Our guest is Paul Mooney, and 800-989-8255 if you'd like to join the conversation or send us an email, talk@npr.org. We'll begin with Tim. Tim's calling us from Oro Valley in Arizona.
Oh, thanks for taking my call. Obviously, I'm an African-American, and I just wanted to say that I do think it's okay for blacks to use the word because, first of all, I think whites know what that word means. They know exactly what the use of it is to take away the self-esteem of a black person. And like I think also is that, you know, I can call my sister an idiot, but if you were to do the same thing, you know, obviously that wouldn't sit well with me.
You might have a problem, yeah.
Right. And lastly, I would just like to say that, you know, that word, we seem to have amnesia in this country, you know, without historical context on that word. You know, people use that word as kind of like a ego boost. I've heard in the past someone say to me, you know, at least I'm not the N-word, and to me that just seems like a person defining themselves by what they're not. Mm-hmm. It just seems like poor self-image, and I know that there are plenty of well-adjusted white people that understand those nuances.
Paul Mooney, what do you think?
Don't you sound like I sounded 3 months ago. Don't have an affair with that word. We have to get rid of that word. We have to get rid of it. We really do.
Yeah, and he's right. And I'll tell you why. Because the caller is saying it's okay for black people to use it. But what sense does it make for black people to use the N-word when they hate when white people call them the N-word? Why would you use the same if you don't want to be... It's like this. It's like if you don't want to breathe secondhand smoke because you don't want to get lung cancer or get sick, why would you smoke cigarettes yourself? That makes no sense. That's an asinine reasoning. That is an asinine reasoning. You cannot have it both ways. That is pure hypocrisy. That is what you call a double standard. You cannot do that. There is no way to be fair. There is no way for black people to use the N-word, but expect white people not to use the N-word, or any other race to use the N-word. It's just not. That is not feasible. If you don't want the word to be used towards you, then the best thing you can do is to drop it from your vocabulary. Because when it comes to human society, words, are invented every day. And words change definitions every day. And for example, 70 years ago, gay means to be happy. Like, yeah, you're gay? Yeah, I'm gay. In the sense that, yeah, I'm happy. But of course, gay does not mean happy anymore. It means someone who's a homosexual. You know what I'm saying? So words can change meanings. And when you go to different places, words can have different meanings altogether. Just like fags is a derogatory term for homosexuals here in the United States. But if you go to the United Kingdom, you'll routinely hear people say, I'm going to go to a store and get a pack of fags. Because fags mean sticks. So they're trying to say they want to get some cigarettes. It's just a slang term for cigarettes. I guess the slang term for cigarettes in our country is smokes. But over there, it's a totally different word. It's a totally different meaning. Has nothing to do with people, So that just tells you how words can really change definition, and they can have different meanings depending on where you go. But anyway, I don't buy that dude's argument. That's the really asinine argument. So we'll continue. Hold on.
It has to go. That word has to go.
What?
And we try to hold on to it and try to. It's got to go because it's gotten out of hand. It's become an equal opportunity word. We're not using it by ourselves anymore. It's gotten unleashed, and it's like a monster.
What about what Tim was saying? Within one black to another, is that all right?
No, it's not all right. Period. For anybody to use it. No, it's not.
There is not just your generation. You mentioned, of course, Richard Pryor, Dick Gregory, people who were, Richard Pryor isn't still with us, but Dick Gregory still is, and yet it seems to have taken on a whole different velocity amongst younger people.
Well, it has. It's a backlash. It's a backlash on our society. Society is the culprit. Society really is the culprit.
Sir?
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
So if I could just add one more thing. I was wondering, Paul Mooney, if you could kind of talk about this in terms of the way the discussion is usually framed as race and class, and I would argue that race is class, because when you're calling a person that word, you're classifying them, compartmentalizing them, and like I said, it's an attempt to boost your ego. So that's where I look at that word is in terms of race being class. I was wondering if you could talk about that.
No, I understand that. I feel you, but if a person is a Jew, they're not going to use that other word, that K word. They're not going to do that. And when Michael Jackson put it in his video, they pulled it from the shelf. They pulled it. They're not having it. They're not having it because they know what danger in it from that Holocaust. And we had our Holocaust, and we've got to get out of that. We come from the land of kings and queens, and we have got to get it back, our dignity back, and we've got to take a stand with that word. We have got to end all that and to make it almost illegal to say. We have to get that out of the vocabulary, and it can be done, because it's like when people say to you, oh, you're using the race card. I wasn't interested in about a race card. I want to know how it got in the deck. But I want that word out of. It's going to be out of my vocabulary. I mean, you're an American. It's your. Well, you're not really American. Only an Indian and a Mexican. You're a United States citizen because you're occupying a land that really isn't ours. So you can do what you want to do. I mean, yeah, that's your right as an American. That's why people come here, for freedom of everything. And this is not about freedom of speech either. And this is about dignity. And I'm done with it. It's a Reynolds Wrap. I'm done.
Tim, thanks very much for the call.
Thank you.
We're talking with Paul Mooney, a comedian who's performing here in Washington, D.C. this weekend at the Lincoln Theater. You're listening to Talk of the Nation from NPR News. And let's get Michael on the line. Michael calling from Portland, Oregon.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that there's a real danger in the black community using the word. In my experience, fortunately I don't hear it much anymore, but in my experience in the past, when white people use the word, and I would call them on it, the rationalization has been, well, they use it themselves. They call themselves that.
I suspect you've heard that too, Paul Mooney.
Oh yeah, it's true. That's why I said it's become equal opportunity, and it's the Willie Lynch syndrome. It is. It's a Willie Lynch. Have them love and trust only us and not each other. The old against the young, the black against the light skins, the dark skins, the curly hair, the straight hair. It's to keep us brainwashed and said, do it, and then they'll brainwash themselves. And that's what lynching is named after him. It's not literally hang you. It's mentally.
I applaud your decision to keep it out of the vocabulary.
Well, sir, I'm glad that you're smart enough to see it, and thank you very much.
Thanks for the call, Michael. I wonder, you mentioned speaking with Michael Richards. Have you spoken with any other comedians about this?
Of course. I spoke with Whoopi Goldberg about it, and she called me and told me that I had to give her an N-word pass because she had somebody to curse out Friday, and after that she'll never say it again.
She promises.
Yes, she promises. And I've had calls from Roseanne Barr, who's calling me the Black Jesus now, and so she says I have love for my own species, which is comedians. Mm-hmm. And we're all getting together about this, and from Brad Garrett, from Everybody Loves Racism, Raymond, and
you know what? I never watched that show, so someone will have to tell me the inside joke on that one.
A couple other people. We're going to stand behind this.
Mm-hmm. Of course, it's not just comedians. It's very much an element of hip hop too.
Oh, there people. Some of them are coming around too. We just have to. We got to kill this word. I know everyone wants it to live, and they have such fun with it, and it's so dramatic, and
and it's shocking. There's
but it's hard to get away from drama. It's hard to get away from drama.
Yeah. As you look ahead to the world ahead, dropping that word, dropping the provocation, dropping the shock effect of that word, it's not going to stop you from being a comedian, a funny comedian, and a controversial comedian. I
and we actually at the Laugh Factory, we're fining people. They say the B word or the N word, they get a fine.
A fine.
Yeah, we're real serious about this.
Kangaroo court there, like in baseball.
We get the whole thing. Yeah, yeah, that's what we're doing. It. We're serious about this. We're not playing games about this. This is the new world. Not the new world order, but this is a new world with this N-word.
I wonder, though, as you went through your routine for your next show, and I don't know whether that's the show that's coming up this weekend or not, but, I don't know if you keep notes or however you arrange it or whether it's all in your head, but you're going to have to go through you're going to have to make a lot of edits.
Well, that's possible. Because someone asked me about that. They said, you use that word so long, if you had $1 for it, you'd be a billionaire. So, but that was then. I'm talking about, I don't want to live in the past. I can't do anything about that. I can only do what's the future and the present now. I can only handle that. So.
Here's an email we got from Joni in Charlotte, North Carolina. Perhaps there are just some words we haven't healed from. If comics like Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, and those who followed cannot loosen its power through satire to the point where it cannot still provoke outrage, maybe it's time to retire the world until time has had a chance to diminish it.
Yeah, she's smart. That lady was smart. It's just, sometimes people can't see what you see. We see a head-on collision. We all see different things. We all feel different things, and I'm not angry with anybody because they're saying we use and all, because I can understand it because I was there, I was there, but it's just time to move on. We have to just let it go.
Paul Mooney, thanks for coming in. Good luck with your shows.
Thank you very much. I hope you show up.
Paul Mooney is performing here in Washington, D.C. this weekend at the Lincoln Theater. He joined us here today in Studio 3A. You can hear more of Paul Mooney on NPR's News and Notes at our website, npr.org. Ira Flato's here tomorrow with Science Friday.
All right, so that is the end of the Paul Mooney interview. And there is, and that's it, for the interview. So, my view is, I already told you guys my view as far as using the N word, but I do think that there's a bigger issue than just the N word. You see, when you look at a group like the NAACP, for a lot of black people, they're the beaming light, the icon. They try to establish civil rights for black people, and people really do appreciate them for the work. But their goal is for black people to be seen in the same, to see what they are, just like everyone else, humans. They're worth just as much as any other person, of a color or whatever. And that's an admirable goal. But here's my viewpoint on when it comes to addressing racism. Racism can never be cured by just appealing to a particular group where the racism is aimed most toward. In other words, if you're black or whatever color, or if it doesn't really matter what kind of color you are, if you want to end racism, then you cannot get together with everyone that's of similar color or ethnic group and take it that way. Because see, racism is built on segregation. As long as we segregate people, then racism will always exist. For example, we don't segregate people based on their eye color. It's never happened. It's like, because it's foolish, we don't segregate blue eyes, brown eyes, green eyes, or anything like that. So, guess what? That's why there's no derogatory term, at least that I know, for someone who has brown eyes, or blue eyes, or green eyes. If people want to end racism, then they got to reevaluate what race really means. There is only one race. There's the human race. What we define as race is merely variety due to genetic makeup. Just like different plants and different animals, our DNA has the ability to adapt to its environment. People of darker color, if you notice, are much less likely to get skin cancer, due to exposure to the sun. It's because because we have melanin in our skin. But there are black people who do get skin cancer, but it's very rare. So my point is this: if you want to end racism, then you have to basically stop looking at people as different races and just look at it as variety. To me, looking at someone because they're white, and making a stereotype is like looking at a plant, like looking at a rose, and maybe looking at a rose that's maybe blue instead of red, and make a stereotype about it. It's stupid, isn't it? So that's just my whole thing about that. And I think that as far as what I was saying before about girls, and for those of you who have sisters, or you might just want to think about what I said earlier about using the word bitch, because it is not a secret. It's quite common that girls are literally nothing more to some guys than walking vaginas. That's how, so when I think of the word bitch, it kind of makes perfect sense, because we go home from a day's work, we put our feet up, the dog comes up there, we pet it, spend time with it, but we don't view the dog as equal to ourselves is just a pet. But guys, some guys view girls in the very same manner, where they come home, the girl is there for mainly one reason, among others, and that's for sex. It's not, and as long as that attitude is perpetuated by use of bitches and so forth and so on, then you're going to keep on hearing about, you're going to keep on hearing about, what people are doing to each other, especially to girls. I'm not just talking about rape. I'm talking about abuse, period. That's my only 2 points about that. All right, moving on. We're going to talk about what DSP resignation from Team Hate, because I think it's worth discussing, because I can definitely see where he's going with it. Let me go ahead and read you what he said, and I think it's rather interesting. He has some points to be made that I never knew about it. I'm gonna read his first post. It says, "Let it be known that when people go on AlphaISM radio or into a thread or anything like that and post on opinion, whether it's myself or Ed or CB or whatever, that statement opinion is only the opinion of the person speaking. It is not representing what all Team Hate feels about a project. We are all strong individuals who have different opinions about different subjects, and to generalize like that is wrong. I don't want to hear anything else about people saying that Team Hate is getting a bad reputation because of stuff that myself or Ed or anybody did. One thing that Team Hate is not is a business where every member represents the entire organization, like that other team we all know about, and some of us dislike. I also don't want to hear any more nonsense about people wanting to quit for nonsense reasons before they talk to the people who they have a problem with. That's just dumb. What Team Hate is really about is a few things: good competition, having a good time, meeting new people and being open to all newcomers, trying new games, having fun instead of making a buck or getting famous like that certain other organization, talking shit and creating hype to make drama and hype up events. No, we're not really going to go to tournaments and beat people up. What we do is try to put on an exciting spin on events to increase attendance and excitement about them. Now, if anyone has a problem with the above, feel free to leave the team at any given time. Also, there is no established leader for Team Hate. We do not need one. This is not a company that needs a CEO. We are just an association of assorted gamers out to have fun and make the community grow. Period. Okay, now let me scroll down, because 2 posts later he posts, I guess some things have happened, and this is what he says. He says, over the past couple of days, a lot of stuff has come to my attention that I hadn't really thought about, but just let go. The events that transpired today have broken the last straw. Since I got my car roughly 2 years ago, I have always made every effort to make sure that every player in the area that wanted to go to tournaments with me did. I waited for them, met up with them, picked them up from train stations, had them stay over my place, made every possible effort to make sure that when people wanted to play games and go to an event, nobody got left behind. Sometimes it really sucked because it meant leaving earlier or later than I wanted to. Sometimes it meant driving back at fucking 4 a.m. in the morning when I was tired as fuck. And most of the time it meant paying most of the bill when it came to gas and hotels, because I know that players aren't rich. I might have complained once or twice, but the fact remains that nobody got left behind if I couldn't help it. I really don't know the full story of what happened with Team Hate trying to go to NEC, and at this point I don't want to know. All I know is because I was sick and unable to go, there were a lot of crazy shuffling and planning. If anything, I thought it was going to be Tony or Walter or someone down there that got left behind because they didn't have a ride, and somehow it's Nestor and Ed that get left instead. Now, we all know that things don't always go according to plan. In fact, they never do. But the fact that Nestor and Ed were promised a ride, and then somehow that ride magically vanishes is one thing. But the fact that Nestor was told to leave Ed behind and go himself is the most fucked up thing about this. Ed was at Nestor's house when that was said, and I'm pretty sure Ed wasn't too happy about it. Keep in mind that Ed rarely goes to tournaments and was extremely psyched about NEC, and so was Nestor. The fact that Ed and Nestor were getting left behind was one thing, but the whole oh well fuck it attitude in saying that Ed should just stay behind is a slap in the face. It's too much, I'm tired of this bullshit. Even though things didn't work out perfectly, I'm sure something could have been done to find a way to get these guys to NEC. Instead, they're sitting at home pissed off and disappointed. I actually feel bad about posting that mission statement for Team Hate the other day because obviously it was all a lie. If Team Hate really did stand for having fun and bringing people together from all over the place, all types of hate, people from all communities and games, then shit like this simply wouldn't happen. You don't promise people one thing and then simply give up when miracles don't come through. This is unacceptable and is nothing like the ideals and values I stand for. Within 1 month, I have single-handedly witnessed entire threads get destroyed by the immaturity of the members of this team. I've also seen very innocent people who have nothing to do with anything get hurt and have their names dragged through the mud because of immature bullshit. Within the past week, I have seen people who wanted to quit because the drama has gotten too strong and found out that the team's reputation is slowly getting worse and worse. And today my stomach finally couldn't take it anymore when I find out that Team Hate doesn't care about its own members. This is enough for me. I never asked to join Team Hate and I never asked to be the leader. When I tried to step up and take charge for challenges and other things, which is what a real leader does when nobody else steps up, I was criticized and people had hidden resentment that they decided not to come to me with. Well, enough is enough. You want real hate? How about this? I quit. Keep my name off your roster from now on. I'll do my own thing. Now, people probably wondering, why did I go through this whole spiel? I go through this whole spiel because I think that, first of all, that was a good post, DSP. I like that post. Because it shows not just a problem within Team Hate, but problems in general with any community dedicated to a particular hobby or cause. That sometimes people just don't care about each other. And that's what I wanted to talk about earlier. It's like when you use words like nigger or bitch, and you call someone words like that, you meant to hurt them, you know. And that's what DSP was telling me, that he did not meant anyone to be hurt. You know, he says that, you know, none of the things that he say online, you know, when he's talking hype or talking shit, is supposed to be taken seriously. But again, sometimes it does, obviously. I had this conversation so many times before with Triforce, most recently with Flash G, and that is, it is very hard to talk shit and not have someone get offended, because more often than not, people cross the line, and people's feelings do get hurt. People try to say that you have to have a thick skin. True, you do. But you also need to be cognizant of the fact that you need to be aware of what you say to other people and how they may take it. And that's not being a fool, that's being wise, that's being prudent. The fact is that I see patterns that there's a lack of love among the gamers. And what I mean by love is not the affectionate type of love that you see between, spouses or people in love, or between family members. I'm talking about love that is based on principle, as in doing the right thing and being non-conditional. I found something interesting. I'm not going to get into a religious debate, but in the Bible, the Greek word for love is agape. All right. So let me read you what the definition of is, because this is not about religion. But I thought that this is a very good definition. It's one of the best I've read. It says here on Wikipedia, Christian writers have generally described agape, as expounded on by Jesus, as a form of love which is both unconditional and voluntary. That is, it is non-discriminating with no preconditions, and it is something that one decides to do. St. Paul describes love as follows. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And my viewpoint is that type of love is missing inside the fighting men community. Because too many times people are impatient, they are envious, they do boast, they are proud, they are rude, they are self-seeking, they are easily angered, and they do keep a record of what people do that's wrong. They do delight when something bad happens to them. They don't protect, they don't trust, they don't hope, they don't persevere, and love does fail. So, I think that people should think about that. You know what? For me personally, love can be defined in one sentence. Love actively looks for the good in people. And that's the problem, because most of the time, when I read what people write about others, they look for the bad. I mean, and that's just true. People look for what's bad. They don't look for what's good. They want to look for reasons to nitpick and to nag and to demonize people. And that's wrong. And that's wrong. Nowadays, especially on SRK, that a lot of people are famous because they're infamous, because of something bad or shocking, not because of something good. I'm not saying that you got to be affectionate or to people who don't treat you with respect. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is that people in general need to be just a little bit more forgiving, and need to be a little bit more courteous as to what other people, how they might feel or think. That's just my own. I mean, and that goes for me too. So, all right, okay, DSP says he has his voice back, so I'll ask him, okay, let me see if I can get him on the show. Hold on. So, hold on. Alright, he says hold on for a second. Alright. But that's just my whole point of it all. People need to be more aware of what they say. And I really wish that the petty bickering that I see among a few people that I know stops, because there's really no need for it. People tend, and this goes with, beyond SRK, but people tend to think the worst about. And when they read the worst about someone, for some reason people are compelled to believe it. and I think that that's unfortunate. And I mean, that's just how I feel about it. By the way, if you do want to go on the radio station and give your thoughts on the what I've said, or the radio interviews, or about the whole issue with team hate, let me just make a side observation about team hate. Assuming that everything the DSP said is true, then the name team hate would be deserving. Because, it is hard to reconcile that we're all, good friends, and we all look out for each other, and have a name that is called team hate. That's just my own view of it. It's hard to believe that they really do care about each other. They want to make each other, they care about each other, not just, as far as the gaming scene goes. It's just personally, they want to make sure everyone, does well for themselves and all that, but has a group called team hate. I don't know if you could really mix those. I know that it's not meant to be taken literally, but I've seen posts, and I've heard comments made even on the radio station that where that word is taken literally and used literally. But anyway, to go back to what I was talking about before, and to sum it up at all, someone asked, I think it was F&J was mentioning whether or not I'm going to be censoring the radio station as far as using the N-word. The answer is no. People, I'm not going to censor words used. That's not how it is. All I ask is to give me, common courtesy. That's all I really ask. And I ask that if I want to change the subject about something, then we change the subject. We don't continue going on about it. But I'm not going to censor the word, because if I censor the word nigger, then I should go ahead and censor the word bitch. I should censor the word hunky. I should censor the word, asshole, bastard, kink, or just about, because all of these words are meant for insults. So if I'm going to be fair about it, then I should outlaw all of those. But I'm not. And there's nothing that has happened up to this point on the radio show that's going to make me think any different about that. I do think, but I do want to say something about being on the radio show. When you're on the radio show, do not be mad that I or another person talk about what you said on the radio if you're not present. You know what I'm saying? If you say something on a radio station and you get called out on it, that's your business. That's your business. That's how it is. I'm gonna just say that there's been a couple of scenarios. People who are like, well, this was said and that was said, and why did you use that and why did you use this? You said it. That's why. If you don't want it to be used, then don't say it. Because these shows are being recorded. People are listening. So don't be mad when someone decides to call you out or decides they want to tell you a piece of their mind based on what you said. So that's just how I feel about it. Also, I want to give you an update. I do wanted to thank. There's been about, I think it's 3 people that have donated so far, and so I do want to thank True Tech, I do want to thank. I forgot the another person's name. John the Branker. I can't remember the other person's name. Anyway, I do wanted to thank the third person wanted to remain anonymous. So the 3 people have donated so far. If you want to donate, just visit AlphaISM.com. I can pretty much give the instructions there. I have my PayPal is listed on there. If you want to donate in other ways other than PayPal, then just message me, email me, or get me on AIM. Message me on the forum, either forum. There's tons of ways you can get in touch with me. Unfortunately, I don't feel as good about my prospects with Bank of America than I did just a couple of days ago. The corporate security called me Friday and was asking about an omission off of my application. I forgot to put down that I worked for Blockbuster over 3.5 years ago. And I was told it's an honest mistake. I have nothing to hide there. I quit because I was making 15 cents of a minimum wage. But see, Bank of America, just some let you guys know, if you ever apply for Bank of America, they are anal retentive. When it comes to your application, you omit one thing or you got the dates wrong on one thing, they will flag you and you will fail the verification and you will not get hired. So this is just letting you know. You have to be 100% up front about your job history. They are going to ask you for dates. They are going to ask you whether you gave notice. They are going to ask you whether you got terminated or you quit on your own volition. So that's just letting you know. I don't know the results. The results were handed to the corporate recruiter, but the corporate recruiter was sick, so she was not in Friday, so I will know Monday. Hopefully, I'm still in the running. My last boss, one of my last bosses gave me a very good recommendation, so hopefully that will kind of, equalize things out a bit. But, I won't know until Monday. But, again, to the 3 people that have donated, I do thank you. And, I do appreciate that there are people out there that do care about, people, and they want to help out, whatever they can. And, again, thank you very much. And, hopefully, I'll get enough where I'll be able to buy myself a car and hopefully expand my, be able to, go out there and look for jobs, apply for jobs without worrying about if a bus goes there or not. And because, like, for example, there are some jobs where I can't take because they don't close until very late where the buses stop running. That's why I'm like, with Bank of America or banks like these, I don't have to worry about it because, they all close at 5, 6, or 7 p.m. at latest. And I can still, catch the bus home. But that's not true, like if I would apply to certain retailers where they don't close until 10, 11, or 12. So, but I am trying to get some headway on there, follow a few leads. I'm already applying for other jobs because I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about this. Because the corporate recruiter told me that, they're very strict, and obviously I missed the boat when I forgot to put that Blockbuster down. Although I wasn't hiding anything. There's nothing to hide. I gave my notice. I terminated. Unfortunately, she couldn't verify that I worked there because, this was 3.5 years ago. And when I left California last year, he was about to be transferred to another store, my former manager. And now I found out that he's no longer with the company. So, anyway, I think DSP is ready. While I'm getting his number, while he's giving me his number, I'm going to go and grab myself another soda. Be right back. All right, here we go.
Hello.
What's up, DSP?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Not much. Not much that you don't know already. So, just living life. How you
Tough
feeling?
week, man.
Huh?
Oh man, it's been tough. It's been probably one of the worst weeks of my life. To be completely honest with you. As you can hear, I'm still not completely healthy. I couldn't even talk until Thursday. I finally kind of got my voice back.
Mm-hmm. So, what did the doctor say?
The doctor, when I went on Tuesday, the doctor said that obviously I had really heavy chest congestion, but I was like, I've had this for over a week. That's the problem. I'm resting. I'm drinking a lot of fluids or whatever, and it's not going away. And he's like, well, it's possible you have pneumonia. And, that's not going to go away if you don't take antibiotics and medicine to break up the congestion. So that's what I've been doing, just resting and taking the medicine. And luckily, it is working. And he wrote me a note I got in the mail today that says, please excuse Phil from work for a week, the week that he had off because he had pneumonia and he needed to rest.
Nice. So,
I don't know, man. I don't even know how the hell I got it. I was just going to work. I didn't do anything out of the ordinary,
Well, germs are everywhere, so you might have touched the same phone that someone else touched that was diseased, and who knows. Airborne, all that stuff. It's just life, really. So give us a little bit of a background as to, I read what you posted on SRK, and I'm a little bit surprised that you quit Team Hate. I know you say you never officially joined, but still, it's really interesting. So,
well, that's one of the major points is I never joined them to begin with. I wanted to see what the whole TGA thing was about when they had moved. TGA used to be, this little hole-in-the-wall place in Rhode Island. I went there once. It was like playing games in a closet, and I hated it. And then I heard that Andy had moved his arcade out to Massachusetts, and I just went. It was right before Evolution this year. I think it was the weekend before Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out there, and, I'm cool with most of the people that were already in the team. But, Team Hate came around, a year and a half ago? It's not something that's been around for a long time. And to be completely honest, I thought that they originally had stolen my gimmick. My gimmick for years was, the King of Hate, DSP. He does whatever he wants, and he says whatever he wants on SRK, but he gets results. And then I see these group of players come out saying, we're Team Hate and blah, blah, blah. And I went right into their thread, and I'm like, look, you guys are, stealing my gimmick, and I don't know who you are to do that. You didn't even consult me, and everyone in the community knows who I am, so that's kind of lame that you would go around something like that and try to steal it. talking to a lot of people have told me that originally they thought that Team Hate was my group, and I had nothing to do with them. They thought that, just by the name association. So I think that originally when they kind of came together, they were just trying to kind of steal my fire and, the popularity that I had at that time. And originally when Team Hate started, it was only 2 people. It was like Smooth Cat and 2 other players who just played on Xbox Live. It wasn't anything huge, and then it kind of branched out from there into the gamers that were playing at TGA in Rhode Island, and then Nestor joined, and Ed, and a lot of people joined. And then finally I kind of met them as a team that weekend before Evolution, and I guess just being there, and I had a good time. The arcade's good, the people there are cool, and they kind of just said, hey, you're part of Team 8 now. And like I said, I've never been a part of any team, and it's not anything that I was ever seeking. The Empire was recruiting people. I never wanted to join them in the first place. I've always been a one-man thing, and that's how I work best. I can go and say whatever I want and do whatever I want and get results, and I don't have to worry about a negative impact, you know what I mean? I don't have to worry that, oh man, now I'm giving a bad name to other people that are in my group. And I've always liked that freedom. That's what lets me get results. And then all of a sudden now, I'm in a group, and every time I turn around, I have to worry about what I'm saying, what I'm doing. It used to be I would go and insult someone in a thread, and that would be it, and then, there'd be a backlash. Now it's like I insult someone in a thread, then someone else from Team Hate says something, and someone else from Team Hate says something, and then someone says something back, and then I go to work, and I come back, and the thread is completely destroyed. And it doesn't make sense to me. It's not what I'm used to. It's not what I ever wanted to happen, and it just doesn't make sense to me to go on with something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I never joined them. Like I said, I never actively said, oh, sure, yes, I'm joining 100%, and, I'm into this thing. I didn't even think they were a serious team. I thought they were just kind of joking around. The next thing I know, they're trying to recruit new members and everything. I'm like, hey, do whatever you want,
So, you said in the second post, in the first post though, even though that you never officially joined, I guess you didn't mind being joined as long as that, that people carry themselves with a bit of with a bigger dignity.
Right.
I mean,
when I met them at that tournament at TGA, it's not like I dislike them. I mean, like I said, I was friends with Nestor and a lot of those people before that tournament anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it was some huge thing with a bunch of new people that I met. I mean, Tony Barnhill, or they call him T-Rex, but he's been in Team Hate forever. Dude, I've been friends with him, since back in 2000. Back when Marvel 2 was new, we were like 2 of the best Marvel players in Connecticut. So I've known a lot of the people in Team Hate for years and years.
Mm.
So I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, oh, whatever. Let them say whatever they want. Let them say I'm in the group. The funny thing was I didn't go to like the Team Hate thread and post in that. I rarely ever posted in that until this week. I just kind of went to event threads where people were going to play games and kind of made my comments on that kind of stuff.
So what exactly happened? What was the straw that broke the camel's back?
Well, I can't really say it's just one thing, because if only one thing had happened, I mean, it would have had to be pretty extreme to make me just kind of make the decision I did, but it's just a bunch of things that are just piling on top of each other over the past couple of months. I mean, the first thing, which was the biggest negative impact, was what happened with the NEC thread, because, again, I think about it, and, okay, so there's beef between me and Triforce, so what? That's what it should have been. It should have been me and Triforce. But what happened was, we went back and forth, and I brought a name into it that shouldn't have been brought into it, and that's my fault. But, that's my bad, and that should have been where it ended. But I went to work, I went to sleep, went to work, I come back the next day. The thread has like 30 new posts, all of like ridiculous shit talking back and forth, from Team Hate members, from Empire members, from Triforce, stuff that's not even closely pertinent to the tournament at hand. I mean, it's just so blown out of proportion, and then the thread's closed. Now, that's something that, in the old days, again, if I wasn't part of the team, and I had just gone and made a comment or something like that I didn't like someone or whatever, that would have been where it would have stood. You know, and there wouldn't have been 30 people jumping out of the woodwork to try to get my back. And I think that's kind of what blew that thread out of proportion. It ruined it, really. It took, 2, 3, 4 days to open the thread again. And here was a tournament that was just about to happen, and it was really messed up what happened. And then in addition to the thread and the tournament that probably suffered because of that, then you had the fact that the person whose name I brought into it, who I never should have brought into it, who got dragged through the mud because of it, and then, she has to go defend herself, which doesn't make any sense. She had nothing to do with it. It was a really dumb thing, and that was just kind of like an awakening for me, seeing, wow, I can't really do the stuff that I used to do the way that I used to do it, because now I got these other guys who are going to jump in too, even when I'm not at home, I'm at work, and it's going to get blown out of proportion, and stuff like this can happen. That was kind of the first time I had to take a step back and think about it. And then I'd have to say the next thing that really made me start thinking was earlier this week, and this is a story that not many people know, but earlier this week, Smooth Cat was going to quit Team Hate. And he was making a big stink about it. He posted on SRK in the Team Hate thread, "Oh, I'm done, I'm making my own team." But he didn't give any reasons why. He didn't really explain anything, and it was kind of really obscure what he was, upset about, that he wanted to leave. So, of course, I had to go and talk to him, and what it ended up being was, he had heard the stuff that I had said on the radio, and CB had said months and months ago on the radio, and Ed had gone ahead and said on the radio. And he was afraid that because of all that stuff together, nothing in particular over anything else, but because of all the stuff together, that the team itself that he had created was getting a bad reputation. And, I was like, well, I don't understand what you mean, because all we've done is gone ahead and said the stuff that we believe, we don't like Triforce, blah, 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 and, you agree with that stuff too. And he's like, yeah, I agree with it. Absolutely, but at the same time, back when he created Team Hate, it was a group of 3 people. No one knew who they were. They were Xbox Live scrubs. And so they could go and say that stuff, and people would just laugh at them or whatever. But now when that stuff, it's so public, Team Hate has grown so big that even, major players, the West Coast, the Empire, they all know what Team Hate is, that when someone goes out and says stuff like that everyone hears it, and everyone takes it seriously. And I was trying to explain to him, well, look, that's not the truth. That, no one's thinking that we're going to go to NEC and there's going to be a fight or anything like that. That's just ridiculous. But, and the gist of it was that Smooth had said that when he had started Team Hate, he never thought it was going to get so big, and that, things that we were going to say were going to be heard by so many people, and he thought it just got out of hand. And he didn't want to go to tournaments and, meet new people and have new people be afraid to go up to him and say, hey, I'm a new player, blah, 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 good to meet you, let's play some games, can you teach me something or whatever. Because he was all about, meeting new players and promoting the community and things like that, and I'm all for that too. And he was afraid that the way that the team was going, that people were going to be afraid to do that. They were going to be afraid as a team, think that we're just like a bunch of haters and come up to us in real life and we'll slap you around and call you a bitch and throw you into a trash can or something. So that was his big gripe. But after I actually, if you can believe it, this was just a couple days ago, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, I talked them out of it. I said, this is the team that you created, and, no one's trying to take control, no one's trying to take the team in any direction. You go ahead and do what you want, but, that's a really dumb reason to quit the team, especially since, you're saying you're quitting and you didn't talk to me and you didn't talk to Ed or anyone about it, and, we seem to be the people who you have a problem with, because we're the ones that went ahead and said stuff on the radio and stuff, and I guess people are taking that as representation of Team Hate. So he said, all right, it's cool now, he's not going to quit, and that's when I made that post on SRK about, look, when we go on the radio and we say stuff, don't take that as a representation of all of what Team Hate thinks, because it's not true. And, we're going to say a lot of stuff, but no, there's not going to be fights. Give me a break. No one's going to fight in real life. It's that has been my whole point the whole time, is that everyone says, oh, e-thugs, but nothing ever happens in real life. No one's going to go up and start slapping people around. It just doesn't happen. And if it did happen, you could be permanently banned from the tournament and the entire tournament scene, and you're not going to be very happy. So I don't think anyone's going to want that to happen anyway. So that was on, Tuesday or Wednesday. So that's 2 things, in 1 month, 2 things that just kind of came up out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And took me by surprise, and Oh, hold on, let me get a drink of water here. Much better.
You know, I don't even remember. Have I ever had Smooth Cat on the show?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you might have been on briefly for a minute. I mean, I think one of the nights when you had Ed on, he was at that gathering. He wasn't actually physically on the show, I don't think. But anyway, now, this third thing, and this thing that kind of really just broke the last straw, was with NEC and everything that's going on, and I had every intention of going to NEC, and obviously, that didn't work because I got so sick. And people down in Connecticut were planning on a ride for me, and obviously that didn't happen, and they all seemed to find another way to get to NEC. And then, I was being told that, everything's fine, everyone's going to have a ride that can go. And, Nestor and Ed were supposed to go with Gavin and Paul Wall and that group of people. And I even said to Nestor, are you sure you have a ride? He's like, yeah, Gavin was supposed to take a van or something, and if Gavin can't take a van, then Paul Wall has a van. And so he's going to take his van so everyone can get there, so there's like a backup plan. I go, that sounds good to me, having a backup plan, whatever. And then all of a sudden, all this nonsense yesterday, I'm getting messages and IMs and calls about people getting left behind, and basically people telling them to fuck off, and there's only room for one, tough shit. Nestor, you should just go by yourself and leave Ed. Fuck Ed, let him stay behind and go yourself. I mean, that's ridiculous. You're supposed to be a team of gamers who are all trying to get somewhere and represent yourself, and now you're saying, oh, fuck one guy over for another guy and do all that. And the worst part was that Ed was at Nestor's house when all that happened. He was literally sitting right there next to Nestor when it happened. And for them to just try to say, oh, fuck this guy, let him stay behind, I mean, that's ridiculous. It's just utter disregard for your fellow gamer, and let alone the fact that he's supposed to be on your team and you're supposed to be bending over backwards to find a way to get this guy to NEC. And it wasn't like they were trying to jump on at the last minute and, screw everything up for them. They were already planning this for weeks, saying that they were promised a ride, and they got dissed. I've heard all kinds of rumors like, oh, it was because CB came down from Canada and he drove, and so he was going to drive his car, and no vans were going to get taken, so there was less room. But that doesn't even make sense. I mean, if you have more than enough to fit in the car, you would just take the van. But again, I don't know the exact reasoning behind what happened. All I know is that two people got left behind, and it's really messed up what happened. And I don't see how anything like that would ever happen in a group of people who cared about, getting each other places and caring about the team. It totally was against a kind of a team mindset to me. So I don't understand how you can even call yourself a team when you got people who are kind of double-crossing each other just to get somewhere. It doesn't even make sense to me.
Now, to be fair, let me ask: Does Nestor and Ed feel like they've been double-crossed?
Well, let me put it to you this way: they're not happy. Nestor outright told me last night that he wanted to quit Team Hate as well. Whether or not he has, I don't know. So I'm not going to speak for him. But he was like, I want to represent TGA, but at this point, I don't want to have anything to do with Team Hate. He's pissed at him. And now Ed is just pissed because he saw that I posted that I was going to quit Team Hate over it, and he's trying to talk me out of it. Oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal, whatever. But he's just saying that because he doesn't want me to quit. He's trying to get me to...
Okay, that part, and I was talking to you about this earlier. That's kind of odd, though. You just got left by your own team members, and for a tournament, and yet you want to stop someone else from quitting. To me, I'd be on there like, okay, I understand. I mean, they just done me wrong, so I understand. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I don't understand where he's coming from. I think he's just worried because this is a time where Ed takes everything out of proportion. He goes on the radio and talks ridiculous stuff, and he blows it all up as way bigger than it needs to be. He wasn't really going to fight anyone at NEC. Give me a break, And so he's taking Team Hate so seriously. He's like, oh, we got to get as many gamers as possible to fight the war against the Empire and blah, blah, blah. Give me a break, man. This isn't Star Wars. We're not the fucking rebellion. This is stupid. This is kiddie shit. This is, not what I had envisioned what the team was going to be about. And he's just taking it way too seriously. And so he sees someone like me, you know, a major player in the community who thinks, fuck this. And he's like, oh shit, you know, this is one of the major guys we had, now he's backing out, now what's to stop other people to start quitting? And he had just convinced a bunch of other people to join. If you saw in that thread where I had made that post, right before that post that I had made with the mission statement, there was a post from Ed that had, like, pasted all the members of Team Hate, and there was a bunch of new ones, like a couple of Guilty Gear players. They actually just got a guy named Korean DJ who's a Smash player, Smash Brothers, and they all wanted to join because they didn't want to join the Empire, and they wanted to be part of something, and so he convinced them all to join. And I guess he's kind of thinking, well, here's, you know, our opportunity. They were just recruiting people, and now here's someone big who's going to quit. You know, it's going to make everyone else want to take a second thought and maybe want to quit too, you know?
I see. I mean,
I don't
it's
know,
just,
man.
it's
too much for me.
I understand that. I understand that part. Although that seems a bit odd. That seems a bit odd. Because if I spoke to Ed or Mukai earlier, and you know he was pissed, and I was telling him I was doing the show, you know, and everything, and I told him he can download it later on, so he'll come on. He can come on and correct if I'm wrong, but
yeah,
it seems a bit hypocritical to criticize Empire if you're recruiting members of your own for your own group. Because in an event, let me tell you something. In the event that they have the opportunity to promote themselves on MTV, not just you use MTV as an example, but in any type of medium, they will take that opportunity. There's not in my mind if they would. You know, so how would that be any different from Empire? You know, okay, yeah, you may not have an officially structured organization, but still, it is still an organized. And plus, if it is the point where you know, where it's a possibility that people can start making money, I'm sure it would become an organization. So what I'm saying is that's
no one owns the damn thing, you know.
Yeah,
there's no one leading the whole thing, so I think that's the real problem right now.
Well, let me tell you, in any group, there are leaders. You know, I mean, you just got to look at who's making decisions for the group, and those are the leaders, basically. You know, so if you know whoever's doing the recruiting and so forth and so on, then they obviously have to be play some type of leadership role.
Right.
So I mean, so they may not have it may not be clear and cut as the case for the Empire.
That was one of the major points that. Look, bear with me on this. This was one of the major points that Smooth was trying to make. Smooth Cat. It was like, you know, you kept saying Phil and Ed, they're trying to take over, you know, they're trying to take control of Team Hate, and I'm the one that created it, and that was another reason why he wanted to quit. And I said to him, look, you know, I never wanted to even be in Team Hate. You guys kind of recruited me, and I never said yes. I just all of a sudden I was in it. So I think your point's really ridiculous, and I never tried to lead anything. I mean, it's one thing if there's a thread like, you know, the NEC thread where we were going to do Empire versus Team Hate, and Paul Wall posts, hey, let's do the challenge. And then Triforce is like, okay, I'm down, and then nothing gets said. And I'm sitting there staring at the page like, okay, so is anyone going to propose something, or are we just going to sit here? So obviously, you know, I'm being that I've been around for so long, I'm going to step up and say, okay, let's have a challenge with this and this and this. And I did the same thing when it came to Team Canada, and I don't know if you've heard about this, but in January, Team Canada is going to be coming down the TGA. There's going to be a Team Canada versus Team Hate challenge. And Team Canada was forming a team of players to come and play. And the problem was, apparently Gavin, who is the Asian guy who, he's part of Team Hate, he lives near TGA, and he works at TGA, and he works very closely with Andy, the owner, to get these tournaments going. And he had talked to Team Canada, and he had set it up as a challenge of like a Team Third Strike, Team CBS 2, and Team Marvel 2. And I said, well, wait a second, we don't even play Marvel 2. We have like Tony is like the one major Marvel player. I've retired from Marvel. I've already said I'm not playing it anymore. Nestor doesn't play it. He plays it once in a blue moon. You know, we don't have any real Marvel players to challenge them, and here's Canada, and they're actually going to send like their best players in the entire fucking country to come play us? That's stupid. So I stepped up, and in the thread, I made the post. I said, hey, you know, Nagata, Nagadalak, he's the guy, Justin, he's the guy who's like organizing this from Canada side.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you got to wise up because, Gavin might say one thing, but he really doesn't, I guess he really doesn't understand the situation. I mean, we're really good at Third Strike, we're really good at CBS 2, and we're getting there in Super Turbo. I'm trying to train these guys in Super Turbo, over these tournaments, but we are not in any condition to have you guys spend money and come down and make a long trip to play us in Marvel. That would be a waste of time. At first, I think he kind of took offense because he was mad because Gavin was telling him to bring his best Marvel players, but once I explained to him the situation, he understood what was going on, and because of that, he's now going to get more Third Strike and more CBS players to come, and it's going to end up being a better event. And I think when Smooth saw me doing stuff like that, stepping up and taking those steps and posting in a thread, he thought that I was trying to, take control of the whole team. And I'm sorry, but again, I don't want control of this team. I want to be a leader of any team. If I'm going to be a leader of my team, I'm going to start it and do it my way. It's that simple, and I've never done that, and I never really planned on doing that. And one of the reasons Smooth was so pissed off and wanted to leave the team is because he thought that I was taking control from that aspect, and Ed was trying to take control from an aspect of he's going to go on the radio and say all this ridiculous stuff, and he's going to try to recruit all these new people. He's not really running it by anyone. He's just talking to people and saying, "Hey, join," and people are joining, and it's just it's getting way too big. Way too quick.
Well, it sounds like what it sounds like is there's no organization. And I mean, I'm not talking about as you got to go get registered, but it sounds like that is not really organized. If you're going to be organized as a team, then the team does need leaders because the leaders would need to decide what parameters the team is going to act in. Who's going to speak for the team, who's going to arrange for the tournaments, and so forth and so on and like that. And who's responsible for getting new members? It's like who can give public statements about the team, about what the team is going to do. These are the type of things that you do have to come to a consensus about. And so I will tell Smooth Cat as the creator team, hey, if you're not going to do it, then you guys need to get your head together and figure out who is, so you don't have this keep on happening.
Right.
So I mean, that's just my two cents on it.
You're right, and with something like this, again, this is the major problem is that there's no organization with them, and so you come to an event like NEC where you need to get a lot of people to a place that's not so close, and someone ends up getting screwed over. And it's easy to point fingers and say, oh, it's his fault, and something didn't come through. But the fact of the matter is, and this is what I really said in my post on SRK, is that, for 2 years, since 2 years ago when I bought my car, and, the car, this is the first time I had a car that was able to drive and actually go places. And I've always made an effort that anyone that wanted to go to a tournament, whether they were a Marvel player or a Third Strike player, CBS, I don't care. You can come with me and we'll go. The more the merrier, in my opinion. I think a trip is a lot more fun with more people than with less. So you want to come, come on. And sure, if you have money and you can split gas and you can split hotel fee or whatever, that's perfect, But if you can't, I also understand because I know that not everyone's rich. And, I've had hardship with jobs over the past year, so I know what it's all about, to not be able to have a job that you like or not paying enough money, you don't have enough money to do the stuff that you want. So, come with me. This is an opportunity to come down to, hell, what was it? A month and a half ago, I went to Virginia with Nestor and Smooth Cat, and I knew that they didn't have a lot of money, but I went anyway, and we had a lot of fun. And it was good to meet all the guys down there again and play some games, and I thought it was a good tournament. That's what it's all about. That's what the community should be about, not about this, oh, we'll get there, and if you can't get there, well, it's too bad. That's not the mentality of what the people should have, and I don't understand why people think that's okay, first of all. And second of all, I don't want to be associated with something like that where I hear the day of a tournament that people are getting left behind, and, now I got to feel guilty too because I was sick. Maybe if I had taken care of myself a little better, well, maybe, I would have went. More people would have been able to come with me or whatever, and, maybe I got to take some of the blame here too. I don't need this. I don't need to hear this.
Mm-hmm. Well, based on what you have told me so far, yeah, it's lack of organization and a lack of planning and just lack of execution, because you still got to execute your plan. and I think that it's unfortunate, that two people got left behind. Two good players got left behind. For the tournament, because see, to me, this is how I feel. If I were to start an organization, if I got to leave some of my teammates behind, then because of it's not even worth going as a group, because essentially you're embarrassing yourself when you go to a tournament. You're like, yeah, where's Nestor? Oh, we left him behind. All right, where's Mukai? We left him behind too. I'm like, what the hell? What the hell's going on? We don't want them to come. I mean, and here we go again. Earlier, before I got you on the show, I was talking about stopping the petty bickering. And what exactly, from what you're saying, that's exactly what happened. Petty bickering, and people got left behind. And
what it is, it's immature kiddie shit. It's something that should never happen. I mean, we're all adults. We aren't a bunch of 16-year-olds trying to do something here. This is something of intelligent individuals who should be able to get together and do something like this. It's pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous that you would just screw someone over like that. And you mentioned a lot of things. Lack of organization. I think it's more of a lack of respect. If you want me to be completely honest, I think that a lot of the people in the community today, they have a lack of maturity and a lack of respect, and they don't understand what it is to respect someone else. It's one of the things that really gets me, and again, I hate to keep bringing up old issues, but with what happened with that NEC thread and how it got out of hand and how people got hurt that weren't even involved in the issue, there are people who posted in that thread who to this day say to me, well, I don't understand what we did wrong. I don't understand how, I don't get it. Well, you don't understand. I don't understand how you don't understand. There are people here who had nothing to do with the issue. You brought them in, and you basically dragged them through this dirty issue where they had nothing to do with it. And I couldn't interject because I wasn't at home. I was at fucking work. I can't be on the computer 24/7 to make sure people don't say stupid shit. And, it just got so out of hand, and you don't think that's wrong? And people outright told me, no, I don't see where the problem is.
Because, okay, this goes back to manners. I mean, really, it goes back to having manners. You know what your parents always say? If you ain't got nothing good to say, what? Don't say it at all.
Well, that's not true either. That's not true either, because if there's something that needs to be said.
Well, okay, but you look at it in the context. What I'm talking about. If you ain't got nothing good to say about a person, and in the sense that it's going to be insulting and blah blah blah, you know what? Sometimes it is best to keep your mouth closed instead of starting drama. Because see, the thing about it is, most people don't understand that shit snowballs. Your one statement can lead to a whole lot. You even admitted that. You brought one person's name into it. You didn't mean it to go as far as it did, but because of what you said, it did. So again, it just goes back to you got to be very conscientious of what you say.
Right.
Whether or not you're part of a group. That's kind of besides the point. It's just treating people with respect in general. If you ain't got nothing good to say, then don't say it at all. And it's to the point where people. It is not about. It's about people who take the whole hyping talk, the shit talking, too seriously. They take it too seriously. I do not hang my life and my self-esteem based on a fucking video game. I don't care that you can perfect me in Marvel or Super Turbo. That's not going to be the end-all be-all. I am not going to have an inscription on my gravestone that says I suck because I could not be so-and-so in Marvel. It's just stupid. But people, they don't see that. A lot of people, they say the most vile things. That's just supposedly just to create hype. I'm sorry, I don't buy that. You ain't got no damn respect. You ain't got no damn manners. And I don't want to be around you. Because, I would say that a lot of the majority of the posters I see on SRK, I would never have in my house. Because really, if you're gonna come in my house, you got to act your age. If you can't act your age and you think I'm being a pussy because I decide I don't want that shit around me or around the people I'm with, then you don't get in my house. That's all there is. That's all there is to it.
I mean, you're right. What it really is there's got to be a point where you know to draw the line. There's a point where you know that you're going over the line and shit's going to happen. And everyone knows it. It's pretty easy to see the line. And if anyone who tells me, oh, there's no line, blah, 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 you're full of shit. Because I've been there 100 times, and it's like, okay, now do I do it or do I not? And sometimes you do it, and sometimes you don't, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it blows up in your face. But there are people who just don't care if they cross the line and who gets hurt or, what happens as a result of that. Mm-hmm. All they care about is if their end result happens. And so, for someone like Ed, his end result is no matter what I say, no matter what I do, as long as the Empire looks like shit and Team Hate looks good, not even necessarily if Team Hate looks good, but as long as the Empire looks like shit, who cares what happens in between?
Now, see, that surprises me. That surprises me that you said that. That surprises me. Because as much dislike that you have of Triforce, it makes me happy to see that you can differentiate between someone having a problem versus, someone that has a problem but also a hidden agenda.
Right.
Because that was my whole point. That was my whole point with Team Hate. I'm not saying that Triforce is perfect, but it seems like there's some people have an agenda when they talk about the Empire. Not so much as because Triforce has done this or that. It's just because they're easy to pick on because they're popular. That's what I've seen. But you can tell that when I have Triforce on there, you see I have no problem telling him, well, you need to watch what you say. You're a head of an organization. You gotta be above reproach. You heard me say that to him. So it's not like that he don't get it if I see something wrong with it. But at the same time, but a lot of all these attacks on Empire is really, to me, it speaks of jealousy. That's all it speaks to me of. Jealousy, just straight up jealousy.
That's why you noticed that night when Ed was on here hating for 7 hours, or whatever the hell it was on Empire, I wasn't on.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's stupid to me. That's like, okay, if you're going to go on and say something intelligent and make a valid point and have a conversation or a dialogue about it, that's one thing. It's another thing to go on and just be stupid for 3 hours and try to, be funny about it. It's a waste of time. And again, like a lot of people said, it gives your whole team a bad image when you see people who just want to go on and hate for 7 hours about Triforce. Who gives a shit?
Right, because eventually what you'll do is, and I talked about Mooney. I talked to Mooney about this on the air and off the air. Eventually you'll get to the point where it'll become acceptable, where it really won't mean much, because it's like when what people said about Michael Jackson, about the whole kid thing. Everyone knows about it now, but there are still people who give their left testicle to get an autograph by him. It's to the point where people heard so much about it now they don't even care.
Yeah, it's one thing. Again, it's funny because if Mukai were about to get on with Triforce on, probably people would be like, you know what? Who gives a shit? He's going to see the same song and dance. He's not going to have anything to say, and it's going to die just like it did when he was on, when Triforce was on. But if it's going to be me and Triforce, they know that I'm going to actually have valid things to say. And it's going to be a dialogue, not a fucking hate session, and it's going to actually be interesting to listen to. That's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's the difference between me and him, is that, I don't want, I want to get the truth out about things like the Empire. I want to get the community, to where it needs to be popular, to be making money, to get to the next level without getting people stepped on the way. That's what the whole thing's about. And I feel the way that the Empire's doing it is going to step on people, and that's kind of the reason why I don't agree with what he's doing.
Okay.
But then when
my question is this.
It's just as bad.
But my question is this. But the thing about it is that when I hear about the Empire, I hear about for people who are not part of it. Everything that I hear about Empire is bad. And see, that is a red flag to me. Because
that's not true at all. They haven't done 100% negative at all. That's not true.
Exactly, that's my point. But when I talk to people about Empire, they are not part of Empire. it is 100% negative. So that to me, that's not seen. That to me, that's at best that's a one-sided argument. At the worst, that's propaganda slash agenda of their own.
Right.
You know, and that's what I'm saying is that if sometimes the truth might be gray. You know what I'm saying? In the sense that there might be some things that were done that's certainly questionable, if not wrong. But there also might be things that be done where you be like, okay, that was cool. It's seldom one or the other. And it's seldom dependent on one person, too. Because one person of Empire might do things that make your head go, man, that dude is stupid. Another person be like, okay, that dude, I got respect for that dude. You know, and so what I'm saying is, I try not to judge a particular person, a particular organization based on one person, even if that one person is the leader of the organization. Because that one person does things obviously of his own volition that does not have any input from any of the other members of the organization. I mean, something tells me that Triforce does not get his approval from all of the, Empire members, before
I'm
he
sure
says
he's
stuff
not taking a vote when he does stuff with the company. I'm sure he's not taking any votes when he does stuff with the company.
Right, it's not really fair to hold an entire organization based on what one person says or does.
You're absolutely right. And no, don't let me be a person to lie and say that everything they've done is negative, because that's absolutely untrue. The Empire has done a lot of positive things. They have donated some money. I know they've donated money to one particular ECC. They've gotten plane tickets and things to get their players to go to tournaments. No, they have done some positive things. The things that I don't agree with have nothing to do with those positive things they've done. My issue is that you got someone who's the leader of the Empire who, first of all, I don't feel is a very good person to begin with, because of the things that he's done, the promises he's made that have all fallen through, and the totally unrelated things to what he posts about on SRK to try to throw the topic off of what they should be on SRK. But despite all of that, I just don't agree with the idea that everything that he seems to have in his game plan for his company is to profit off of others. I mean, sure, they got an MTV, but someone has to suffer. Why does it have to be like that? Why is it that Canada, a group of gamers who willingly said, hey, come to Canada, bring MTV with you, we're going to do the shooting of a show, and we're going to, we're going to try to get the fighting games to the forefront. Why is it that when Canada opens the doors, that they end up getting misrepresented on TV? In fact, it's a fantasy, because the tournaments that they said happened on TV didn't happen. And, and kind of make Canada look like a bunch of wussies. They basically gave them a negative image. Why does someone always have to get stepped on for someone else to become successful?
That's true. That's true. And although you can make an argument, I am 100% convinced. It's like that if Triforce had anything to do with that segment, he was not alone, nor do I think he actually had the majority. Because the edits that are done, is done because what MTV is going to put out what's going to get people's attention, not necessarily what's true and what's fair. So at one point, at this point, I really can't hold Triforce totally responsible, because I haven't seen what they taped originally in its entirety. Because you can edit anything and make it look bad. So I got to see what they originally taped and recorded to make a decision on whether or not they were actually being fair. Because they might have taped everything, fairly, but they edited it to a way where it looks wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if that's the case, then it would be pretty hard in America to ever get anyone convicted of a crime either, because we have a system that's innocent until proven guilty. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to prove someone guilty, but in this case, all we need to do is look at the end result. The end result is that the Empire looks good, they get their face on TV, they made money off the deal, and someone else is misrepresented. That was the end result. That is the end
result. That's true. But they put the end result of the group that won the tournament, which, according to the material, I guess, was Empire that won. So obviously they're going to edit it where it will they'll basically demonize the losing opponent and glorify the winning one. I mean, that's just how it is, you know. I mean, just because the Empire looks good in it, it doesn't necessarily mean that Triforce had a hand or Empire had a hand in editing it to look like that.
All right. Now, again, I agree there. I agree that, you know, I'm sure Triforce didn't sit in the editing studio and say, oh, cut this and cut that and cut that. No, he didn't do that. But he knew what the script was, and he knew where MTV was going. I know this for a fact. I know that he sat there and he read the edits, and he knew exactly what was going to go on TV. So for someone to say that he didn't know and he was totally unaware, no, that's bullshit. He's even posted and said, yes, I read the edits and I knew what was going to go on TV. He knew what was going to go on TV before he saw it. So that's a very bad argument. He knew what was going to happen, and he knew they were going to demonize Canada and make them look like a bunch of wimps.
But okay, going back to this demonize for a second. Where do you feel that they demonize Canada, or at least give me an example? How do you, what way do you think they were misrepresented?
Well, the footage itself, half the footage of the tournament wasn't of the tournament. It was fake. They had a tournament where they said that girl, Queen V or whatever her name was, Q, she won a tournament. She didn't even place in a tournament. They had phantom tournaments. Like they were saying that Marvel vs. Street Fighter was a tournament and someone won it from Empire. That tournament didn't even happen. So basically what they did is they took a scorecard, this is what really happened. The Empire said, look, we're going to come to Canada and we're going to keep a scorecard. And every placing that we take, we get a certain amount of points, and every placing that Canada takes, they get a certain amount of points. And whoever has the total number, the most points at the end of the tournament is going to be viewed the winner. And that's what's going to happen on TV. So Canada's like, okay. And the next thing you know, it's totally flipped on them. So no, it really didn't show anything of what actually happened in the tournament. What it showed was a fantasy story of the Empire just like completely sweeping over Canada and dominating everything, which is not what happened. If every tournament, what they were saying is that Canada did place top 3. It was very close. Obviously, when you got Justin Wong there, it's going to be very, very hard to win every tournament for for Canada. But I think it's unfair to say that, oh, we just trampled over you in every single event and just kind of make a lie out of it. And that's what Nagata posted about on SRK, and that's what he was angry about. And this is all related to what we've been talking about because, again, it's like, to get your goal, how far are you willing to go? But and I would be willing to say, yes, I'm willing to say, okay, we won. But if that were me and that were my company, I would say, no, I don't want them demonized. I don't want them looking like the bad guys or a group of scrubs who we just, like, kick the shit out of, because that's not true. They're a worthy group of gamers, and that's not going to promote the entire community. We're not out to just promote the Empire. We want the entire community to be felt like we're all a good group of gamers who are all legitimate. But that's not what happened. But that goes back to the argument
we had before, though, because you want a complete and honest and unbiased coverage of the gaming community. But in most media outlets, it is not about they not really care about that. They just want what's entertaining, And I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to bet though. Let's just say that you're part of Team Hate. Let's say you're the leader of Team Hate, and you decided to do and you get on MTV and whatnot, and you're talking about a competition upcoming with Team Canada, and you go there and you guys handle business. You guys won. There is not a doubt in my mind that when it comes to editing it out, when they're going to edit it out, that they're going to make it like, hey, yeah, they won, we won, they lost. There's not a doubt in my mind that they'll try to do the same thing.
But here's the difference. Here's the difference with what they did and what I would do. What's going to really be more dramatic and more entertaining? A show where we just go and completely dominate someone and just, like, I'll kick their butt in 5 seconds and it's over? Or a show where there's struggle, where there's drama, and it's hard to win, and we have to overcome something to win? That's what it should have been.
Well, think about
it really was.
When you're talking about drama in video games, you got to be careful, though, because drama, it has to be understood by the general audience, and for example, if the drama is in Marvel and Justin is down 2-0, and is facing a really person is playing a really good MSP, and he picked Storm Sentinel. People wouldn't understand, why he's losing or what happened and how he got.
Again, you don't have to show the.
Huh?
This isn't about explaining the footage. This isn't about explaining the gameplay. This is just about making an interesting story. I would much rather be interested in saying, all right, here's the Empire, here's their top players, he's supposed to do good in this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he goes to the tournament, oh shit, he didn't do as good as he was supposed to do. This is, totally against what we had expected. Now what are we going to do? And now you have a conflict, and now you have to solve it. And maybe Justin's the hero that steps up and he says, well, whatever, I'm going to win it anyway. And then he ends up winning it. Wow, and that would have been interesting. But at least that way you see that Canada has worthy players. Canada is a force to be reckoned with. And
but that didn't happen, though. In the village, it did. Canada was ahead at first. Canada was ahead at first, and they were in, the dude that's, I guess, I forgot, Compton or whatever, was getting, worked over in Super Smash Brothers and whatnot, and how they got pieced out early or something, and then they came back at the end. That's how I remember it. It's been a couple of weeks since I've seen the footage, and I've only saw it like twice. And but at first it was Canada that winning, and then Empire came back at the end and took care of business.
You understand that the whole beginning part where Canada was ahead was all fake. None of those events happened. That was the problem.
See, there I have to ask. I wonder, why would it be? People fake things all the time, but in this instance, why would there be need to fake anything if you got actual tournament video?
Because they have no idea how to produce a fucking show, that's why. MTV is a bunch of fucking idiots. They don't know their fucking heads from their assholes. So they have all this real tournament video of all these players excited. They were probably jumping around, yelling, and all this drama. And they threw it all out, and they filmed all fake footage of Smash Brothers and DDR and fucking games that didn't happen. Why? Because they're stupid. There's no other explanation. But that's besides the point, because you know that the crew's going to. You can't count on MTV to do everything, because I would have never trusted them to begin with. I would have known they were going to fuck it up. But the whole fact remains that, again, it's like, what means necessary? What means are you willing to take to get your point across?
Mm-hmm.
And what is your point? And all the whole Triforce's point was, I got to get the Empire over. I got to get them, as he says, burn. I don't know where he got that term. It's the gayest thing I've ever heard. But he's trying to get them popularity, and he's going to just stomp over as many people as he can to get there.
Mm-hmm.
He told Canada one thing. When the footage aired, it was completely contrary to what he told them. It was not a realistic portrayal of the tournament. In fact, half of it never happened. It was a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made them look bad, and it made his team look good. Oh, like it's some big surprise that was going to happen.
Okay.
And it's the same thing with me. I want to get stuff done. I want to get my points across, but what means am I going to take necessary? And when I see that, when I'm a part of, as long as I've been a part of Team Hate, before I was a part of Team Hate, I was able to do what I wanted to do. I was able to go out and, sure, I would do some silly things and make some crazy videos and stuff, but my point would get across and things would get done. And last year, Evolution, there were literally 3 to 4 major changes to the rules and things that there were holes in the rules that I was pointing out that they solved because I was the one to speak up and yell about them on SRK. So I get the job done, and no one gets hurt in the process. Now, what I've noticed is that since I've joined Team Hate, I'm posting in these threads, and, now it's kind of the contrary. I'm trying to say Triforce sucks. I don't like the way he does something. I throw a name out there that is not, it's something that should be such an easy reference that he's trying to say that this person is in his group who never agreed to be in his group. And then I got people who don't care about what means necessary, to take down the Empire, who are now going to take that person and drag him through the mud and say that Triforce tried to have a threesome with them and all this bullshit. And yeah, you know what? I knew about that stuff too, but I wasn't going to take it there because I knew that would have hurt that person in order to get my point across, and I didn't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other people, again, that don't care about that. And that's my issue with Triforce. That's my issue with some people in Team Hate, and that's really, I'd say, probably the bottom line why I quit. Because it seems like there are people in this team that just want to get their way, and they don't care who they hurt to step over in order to get that. And I'm not that kind of person, so I don't agree with that, and I wouldn't want to be a part of a team like that. I don't see what makes us any better than Empire. If we're going to fuck people over in order to get our goals and our things accomplished, we're just as bad as them then, because that's the problem I have with that.
Okay, so you know what? I think we come to a consensus because, okay, you made a good point about. I did not know about the footage being faked. That's new. I just learned that. And
Hello.
and about that and about all the stuff.
Hello?
Huh? Hello? DSP. DSP. Hello? Excuse me, we're having technical difficulties, I guess. Alright.
Hello?
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, shit. I got an echo.
What's up?
I got a really bad echo.
You got a bad echo? Hold on, I think I can fix that. How about that?
Let me see. Oh, I still got it really bad.
How about now?
All right, let's see. Oh, I still got it.
Goodness. How about now?
Nope, I still got it.
Goodness gracious. Better?
Oh, let's try it now. Oh, I don't hear it now. Oh, it's gone. Good.
I can barely hear you now, but that's okay. All right. I think we're at a consensus because the next time I talk to Triforce, if the footage that was used was fake and all of this stuff, then I do think that it would be a good idea for Triforce to issue an apology, a public apology, to Team Canada as for the misrepresentation. If I was in the same spot that Triforce was in, and I saw the clip, and I saw that the footage they used were not actually part of the tournament, was not actually used in the tournament, and there was never a Marvel vs. Street Fighter tournament, and you got to take people's feelings into account. And yes, I think that a public apology would be warranted.
Well, he did. He posted in the when they were having that Gamers Week thread.
Mm-hmm.
Posted in that thread, and he said, "Oh, I want to let you know that I'm sorry of what happened." Well, as I said from day one, I didn't have creative control over the footage. And then I posted, and I said, "You know what? That's a bunch of bullshit because it has nothing to do with creative control. You were there when they were filming the fake tournament. You knew what was going on, and you said it was okay. You're just full of shit, and you just don't care who you step on."
Okay, well, see, there's an assumption
reply.
there. There's an assumption there because you're saying that he knew that they were going to use other footage. I mean, how are you so certain? Because like you were saying, he's not there in the editor room. He's not in the editing material. So I don't think he wouldn't be so stupid. I mean, you could say a lot of things about Triforce, but I wouldn't call him dumb or stupid. And it would seem to be not in his best interest if he were to have a film or a TV clip about a tournament and the tournament footage that was used, quote unquote, was not the actual tournament footage, because that was screaming fake. You know what I'm saying?
But again, that's he doesn't care about realism. He just cares about getting popularity for his team.
But see, there we go. That goes back to assumption, though, because what I'm asking is, before I villainize him, to me, there has to be proof or something where I can see in black and white that says, okay, you knew when they were editing this film that they were not going to use that tournament footage.
Well, I would really want to know why MTV was filming one of my female players like she just won a fighting game tournament when she didn't even place in a fighting game tournament.
I would like to know that too. I would like to know that too. I mean, so there was a lot of, I mean, as what you're saying is, there's a lot of misinformation that not just that does and doesn't pertain directly to Triforce. So, and I'm gonna go. So, and at that point, I'd be wondering, in a sense though, we're almost putting the wrong person on trial, because I want to put on what we should be putting on trial is the final editing and a producer. Because I'm like, this footage is fake. This particular person did not win this tournament, nor did he even place. Where did you guys get this information? You know, that's what comes to mind for me.
Oh, it was in the contract. As far as I'm to believe, it was in the contract between Empire and MTV. That it was going to be a point system at Canada, and then whoever won after the point system was going to be the victor. And that's how they were going to have it on the TV show.
Okay.
I don't think they ever outright told anyone from Canada they were going to totally make stuff up. Maybe that's Canada's bad because they didn't ask for a contract on their end either. I think it's kind of a mutual agreement that you're not going to bury a fucking country of players and make imaginary results and shit. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the point system, there is nothing wrong with a point system if they want to use a point system. However, as you said, if they were going to use a system, if they was going to try to, you know, make up footage and make up results, then that's something entirely different. You know.
Right.
And I would be right there alongside you, be very, very upset about something like that, because it was, I mean, I know Triforce's goal is to you know, try to get popularity to the gaming scene, but I mean, I don't think it would behoove him to get that popularity through misinformation. So, I mean, it's one of those things where I mean, to be totally honest with you, DSP, I don't know who really to lay the blame at for that. I really don't. I mean, I know that the editors would have to take some. Whoever produced it and whoever made the final decisions as to what to be included, whoever that person is will probably be. But we don't even know who that is. So I mean, I don't even know who exactly, you know, name-wise, to lay the blame at. I mean, it's easy to lay a Triforce's doorstep because Empire Arcadia is in it and they won at the end, you know. But it's hard for me to believe that he would say, okay, go ahead and use this footage that's not tournament footage. Go ahead and put this person in that won. That never actually placed a tournament, but you're gonna say that she placed anyway, because all that would mean is bad publicity when people find out that he's just that it said that the whole thing was fraudulent. So it would actually hurt him in the end. So I mean, something just doesn't seem right, if you understand where I'm coming from.
But again, he doesn't. That's the thing. If he cared about it, then he would have done something about it. Think about it from this way. Okay? What if it had gotten flipped? What if the Empire had ended up losing by the point system, and then MTV totally flipped it the other way and showed that Canada won all these phantom events and the Empire lost?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Triforce would have been the first person to jump up and say, this is bullshit, you're misrepresenting us, it's not fair, blah, blah, blah? But because it kind of got tipped in his favor, he's going to have a big smile on his face and he's okay with it.
Okay.
He can apologize to SRK and say, oh, I know these events didn't happen, but he's okay with it. He's happy with the result, end result. I mean,
did he say he was happy with the end result?
He didn't say he disliked the show, that's for sure.
Because I guess I'll do some research when I'm off the air. But I'm going to find out what he actually said about the show, because I don't want to put anything in his mouth, you know, put any words in his mouth. And I'll find out what he said after viewing the final product, you know, or how he feels about the show.
Well, the bottom line is this: you have a show or you have an article written on you or anything like that, and you feel it's a misrepresentation, you have the ability to go out and publicly speak and say, look, this was a lie, this isn't what really happened, this is what happened, and this is what should really be told. Now, what happened here was Triforce went ahead and took the bullshit, he saw it was bullshit, and he just shrugged his shoulders and said, oh well, put a little apology on SRK and thought that was going to make it all better. I mean, take a look at what happened to Michael Jackson when he had that interview, that guy from the news program. It was supposed to be like a thing showing his life and what a good person he is. And the guy flipped it and showed like he's a fucking child molester and he's a pedophile and he's a weirdo. The first thing Michael Jackson did was he ran to TV and he said, this is bullshit. You know, I can't believe he would have done that to me because I trusted him to do a fair and balanced report on my life. Here he goes and he flips it for his own benefit. Well, it's the same thing here. Now, if the Empire felt that this was a misrepresentation, don't you think that Triforce would have ran out right away and said, no, this is a lie, this didn't really happen, this is what really happened? But he didn't. He didn't stick up for Canada. Instead, he just let them get thrown under the bus. And when Canada finally spoke up and said, this is bullshit, you know, we can't believe that you guys came here and let MTV film this show that wasn't true, and you put all this fake stuff in here, misrepresented us, and then he decided to say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have control. Bullshit, because if he really cared, he would have said, I really do care, and I'm going to talk to MTV and make sure this doesn't happen again. But he doesn't, and that's the thing. That's how I know that he's a liar. Because if he really did care, he would take that extra step.
Okay.
He hasn't done that.
So you would if let me just make this straight. Get this straight. If as soon as it aired or it became available to be viewed, if Triforce would have given a long apology, and on top of that, show proof that he has gone back and told MTV that the things that they things that they aired were untruthful, and that it's not exactly how it happened, and this person did not play for this tournament. This footage is not from the tournament. Then you've been like, okay, then you would understand.
Right,
in other words, you wouldn't have a serious problem with it.
To relay what really happened.
I'm sorry?
And he really cared about the people who he went and played with, and he cared about the whole community, not just about himself. But he didn't. Because he looked good, and he decided not to do that. And again, like I said, I know he reviewed the cuts. Maybe he didn't see the final show, but he read the scripts, what was going to be aired. They send you different cuts of the show so you understand what's happening with it, especially if you have a contract with a TV company like that. And I know that he read the script because like I said, he's posted and said that he did. So he knew exactly what was going to be on that show. He didn't warn anyone. He told Canada ahead of time to let you guys know this is not going to be truthful, and they kind of swerved it the wrong way. But we did go by the point system, and because we won, they're going to swerve it. He didn't say any of that. He just let it go ahead and let people get under the bus.
Okay. I won't know until I get a chance to talk to Triforce about it, and I'll definitely get his answer. It's just that when you're talking about TV, you're getting the real. That's a real murky area to get into, and because I'm not totally convinced that he saw the show as it was going to be, because even reading a script does not give you the full indication of what the final product was going to be. I would ask him, did he know that they was going to air footage that was not actually part of the tournament footage, although it's portrayed as such?
Well, he was there when they filmed it. Obviously, they were filming the footage. So what are they going to do? Film footage and throw it in the trash can?
That depends, though. That depends, because I remember that when he was on the show, he said that they were filming footage of Justin playing Marvel, but they couldn't. But the producers didn't think it was any good because they couldn't understand what was going on. Because Justin, it was a footage of Justin, I guess, like perfecting the computer on Marvel, doing all this crazy stuff. But they're like, well, that's not really interesting enough. People won't even understand what's going on here. So I don't know. It depends. I would like to know why that particular tournament footage. Why that particular footage that was not from the tournament was filmed in the first place. It might have been for another reason. We don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm not going to try to jump to conclusions. I know that, you have issues with Triforce. Separate from this, you have issues with Triforce. So I'm trying to be just a little bit more of objective because I wanted to. Because if I'm going to make, especially as a radio host, if I'm going to lay down a gauntlet on somebody and say, this person is full of it, then I better have the proof. I can't have conjecture. I can't have accusations. I gotta have proof. And so, I mean, you ask some very good questions, and I intend on getting the answers to him if he's willing to answer them.
Trust me, the answers are going to be interesting, especially if you don't let him know what the questions are ahead of time. He's going to be shitting bricks.
Well, this interview is being recorded, so obviously he'll know. But you ask some pretty hard questions. You really can't dance around something like that because I'm not going to ask him how come they allow him to air. Why would you allow them to air it? Because he may not have control.
Right.
If over the final product being aired. I'm not going to go there with him because that's just not how it works. However, I will ask him, how come, he hasn't really made an attempt. If I haven't seen any, I mean, there might be, but I haven't made any real attempt to try to reconcile with the Canadian players, and how come that what I'm going to ask him what he has done to as on his end. As far as dealing with MTV to ensure that that this won't happen again, or at least try to make an attempt to do so. So I'm going to ask him some questions along those lines because I think that's a good point. I'm all for promoting the gaming community, obviously, but promoting the gaming community through misinformation. I mean, no matter if the misinformation does not change the end result, it's not right. So.
Right. Again, it's the whole point of by what means to get to your end. And are you going to do it the right way? Are you going to take the right steps to make sure that everyone gets presented properly, or are you just going to try to rush to the end result and just run over everyone else in the process? That's what I really feel has happened here, and that's what I feel is going wrong with the way that the Empire is doing what they're doing. Which is the same reason why I think that a lot of the things that Team Hate has done is wrong. So, let no one try to say that I'm a hypocrite and say that I say one thing and I do another, because as you can see, I've disassociated myself from these group of people who I don't agree with. But I think they're doing a lot of the stuff very similar to the Empire.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what he says. Because, in fact, if you can find me the link to the thread that you were talking about earlier, or where he responded about how the final edit came out, that was publicly viewed, I would like to read that.
I looked for it, but it got buried because it was sticky. It was in general discussion, and then within 2 days when it was unsticky, it just flew into a million archived threads. So if you want to search for Gamer Week 2.0, I might be able to find it.
It's on SRK, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's going to be in general discussion, you said?
It was in general discussion.
Okay.
But I don't know. You might want to just do a search for Gamer Week, because I don't think you're going to find it looking at the archive. They're 700 pages.
Great. The search function is not working.
Oh, that's good. And how is search?
Wow. Now I have to wait 30 seconds.
That's too good.
Yeah.
Do you think that's bad? An hour ago, I was thinking about making a nickname on SRK. SRK is blocked. No one may register a name. I was like, what the hell? How are you going to promote an entire fighting game community when you don't let anyone new join?
Is that something? Does that have something to do with earlier something about someone using bots to register?
I don't know. So I know at some point someone was trying to steal passwords and stuff. So I think Wizard turned it off temporarily, but I think he turned it back on. He sent me an IM and said, "Oh, don't worry, I just turned it back on."
Hey, I found the thread. Someone just pasted the link in AlphaISM radio channel.
Oh, they did. Oh, it's his highlight. Yep. Yeah.
Do you remember what part did you know? Let me see how many pages this thread is. I hope it's not like 55 pages.
Let me see if I can find.
Oh, it's only 6 pages. Okay, I can look on here.
That's 4. Trying to find when they got him. Here we go. Oh, I found it. You want me to read what he says?
Could you? What page is it on?
It is on page 5. Yeah, but second thought you better read it.
Yeah, because you're just a little bit too sick.
You're supposed to find the Nagata lock too. It's near the top.
Okay, okay. For people who are listening, I guess this is based on this because you is responding to what Nagata said. He says, Jerron, I don't care about ties or the scores or anything like that. What I care about is a balanced approach to how this tournament went. Empire won their events, and I'm all about giving them their due. However, you and I both know that Justin is the one that carried that load on his back. I give you and Ichiro props for taking down the OG games and representing hard in the other ones. Personally, I think you should have got your props for it, but when you look at the other events where it was all Justin doing the handiwork, and then you have loads of Canadian players taking every other spot, there's something to be said for showing both sides of the issue. One could make an argument that you don't want Justin as the only showcase, but there is something to be said for showcasing someone who is obviously the breadwinner in the group. People relate to strong leader-type figures, and with some simple planning, you could have had the same Canadian episode showing Justin holding it down, and then showing the audience in another episode how Justin epitomizes a truly balanced gamer. In the end, the Canadian scene isn't made out to be pulverized. Never mind in games we didn't even play, and Empire gets to showcase a truly rounded gamer. Hindsight is 20/20, so whatever. It's just theory writing on my part at this point. Like I said in the first post, which I think was lost in the midst of me being pissed off, I don't blame the Empire for how this all turned out. You don't really have a creative control over how the footage will be portrayed, and I don't hold Triforce or the soldiers of Empire responsible. I place complete responsibility for this portrayal on MTV. They butchered what was an exciting tournament and made it look like a slaughter in that video for the sake of putting over Empire. That kind of footage only hurts one for the sake of another, and when the Canadian players eventually see this footage, the joy and power behind the MTV cameras at the T-tournament event will be gone. It's a shame to see such a great medium for progress washed away. That's actually a really good post, but I understand what you're about to say. But I see where he's going with
His
it.
first post is higher up than that thing. Hold on.
And then your
scroll up
response.
is his first stuff.
See, this is where I see you're all based. You don't place any blame on the Empire. It was the Empire that signed the deal with MTV and allowed this to happen. I hate to be a broken record, but when you have the attitude of let's just get our faces on MTV, regardless of how or why it's done, then people are bound to get hurt in the process. Although a lot of people stood to gain from this MTV exposure, in the end, the only people that got anything out of it was Empire Arcadia, period. And that's why we don't trust TFGM and don't feel he should have any kind of hand in the fighting game community. The only reason he came over here was because his empire was doing shitty. He had a lack of top players in the empire, and he needed to start getting names and attention. How do you think they sold this to MTV? TFGM and Arturo outright admitted the first things they said to MTV was, "We have the top fighting gamer in the world on Empire Arcadia." But MTV basically laughed at them and said Justin Wong isn't a marketable person. I just hope you learn from this lesson, Nagata. Unless you see something in writing, don't let someone like TFGM's words stand as any kind of bond. He will use Empire to only benefit Empire, and he will leave us all in the dust. He will tell MTV to put his organization over as much as possible and fuck everyone else, all for the almighty dollar. And then Triforce Game Master responds, "Anyway, Nagata, when we first spoke about the return to Canada to compete, I told you the risk we were taking with MTV being that we wouldn't have 100% content control. You know how the media works. Let's put this into perspective. The point of MTV even being there was to give awareness of such events to mainstream, to show that the arcade scene is still alive, to show that gaming is on a global level. That was the point, and we both knew that. Outside of the competition, the media was to bring interest from the outside and energize the fighting game community. In my opinion, I think the show has done that, unlike other shows that depict gamers as losers in life with real problems and other non-gaming issues. The show stuck to the point. It was about Empire Arcadia versus Canada. Someone had to lose and someone had to win. For TV purpose and reality purpose, we all know that any media was going to exaggerate how it was done for the purpose of entertainment. Come on, you know how this works. The point is, mainstream now knows about the Canadian tournament scene, and that will stir great interest. Being that the Empire is a known gamer force, by us promoting the Canadian scene helps to endorse your community. This is all coming to pass, so I don't see the problem. They gave respect to your nation on top of that. The only thing that was bad was that we won. They didn't make you guys look like fools. They just exaggerated a bit on how you lost, but as I said before, that was for obvious reasons. We already spoke with them and they told us what they were going to do. Before they even aired the show, they called me to make last minute correction. The score was based off the number system that I told you we were going to use. I told you that they don't give a crap about fighting games, and that for the sake of them being interested, you would need to complement the fighting games with what they're willing to go with. That is why Tetris DS went down, and that is why DDR went down. The point is, it worked. Without those games, trust me, we would have not gotten the show to air. What most of those morons don't understand, Nagata, is that you have to give a little you have to give a little to get a little. They talk so much nonsense about what they could have done, but that is all talk. Could have, should have, would have, didn't, and still not doing anything. The closest major network coverage anyone has done for the FGC in terms of the media is Double Perfect, SRK, Stick Skill, Cannons, and Wizard. Outside of them, everyone else is just talk. So don't feel bad. You have done your community a great service. Numbers for the T-Series have gone up considerably. Other than EVO, the T-Series is the only other major fighting game tournament to have any type of media coverage worth mentioning over any other tournament in the FGC bar DOA. Even Smash Brothers community got dissed by USA Network and MLG, whereas the Empire got them burned on MTV. Don't get caught up in the politics that some of my arch enemies want to portray. See, MTV is thinking about a rematch with you guys already, so just know that your community is all good. Triforce. P.S. ECC, TS, FR, Clash, NEC, and MWC, and other regional and national tournaments. My post was not meant to insult the integrity of your tournaments, but to simply state the truth of the matter. Much like the Empire and SRK, all you have to do is step your game up. Take this as constructive criticism. If not, hey, what more can I say? Okay, so
you should read my post right after that too. That'll be the end of the thread of thought.
Okay, Phil says, just keep in mind that any rematch with Canada would be totally fictional, one-sided, and completely based on fantasy rather than fact. Because as long as Empire Arcadia gets burned, fucking faggot terminology, it doesn't matter who gets run under the tariffs in the process. Canada gains nothing, Empire gains everything, whoever have figured. It's also easy to criticize people running major fighting game events and saying they're not good enough to deserve TV coverage, but what the fuck have you done to improve these events, Triforce? You claim to want to improve the fighting game community and get it the attention it deserves in the mainstream, yet all you did was make a show on an MTV about yourself. Something seems wrong here. Fucking hypocrite. Please, people, as you read this, do not buy into his line of bullshit.
Yeah, it's so easy for him to say that TT and Final Round and all these tournaments aren't doing anything to get media coverage, but what did he do to get the fighting game media coverage? Nothing.
Okay,
so it's like, okay, you're going to criticize us, you're not going to do anything to help, then you're a hypocrite.
Well, okay, here's my thing about it is, he's saying, and I understand his line of thought. He's saying you got to give a little to get a little. He's saying that he's willing to concede that the footage.
Hey, Bunkei, I gotta go, man.
Okay.
I gotta eat, but I might be able to.
All right, that's okay.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye bye. All right. Okay. He's saying that basically you're going to have to give a little to get a little, and I understand. He's willing to state that he's willing to, if it means getting people on the air, getting exposure, then he's willing to live with it not being exactly totally 100% accurate. And in that vein, I guess I do agree. I do agree because. Really, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Like I said so many times before, we had a woman who gave, fellatio to the president and got her own TV show later on, because of it. So, I can definitely see where, where Triforce is coming from with that. Because I think the problem is that DSP does not want to compromise. He does not want to compromise the integrity of the gaming community for exposure. And he said, but next time I talk to him, I'm going to have to make him realize that, this is TV. TV is about entertainment, and eventually, and until we're out in the mainstream, that it's like you're going to have cases of this. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, I would not say, and I agree with FMJ. I wouldn't say this hurt the Canadian scene. I don't think so. Does it misrepresent it? Yeah, to a point. But I know what Triforce is trying to say is he says bad representation, not bad representation, but inaccurate representation is better than none at all. Especially when you're talking about getting exposure to the gaming community. So when the next time that DSP is on, we're gonna talk more about that, because I think we argued about this a little bit before, but the ideal way may not be the most realistic way. So we'll talk about that more. So, but yeah, there is truly bad publicity. Don't get me wrong, but you know, but in the overall sense of trying to get exposure to the gaming community, I mean, even if a community is like, you know, loses or was portrayed as losing, you know, a tournament, I mean, still, I mean, it's at least that people know that community existed, you know. So but it was really interesting. It was really interesting. I mean, I see the problem here. I see the problem here. You know, I still want to ask though. You know, did he issue an apology? Because I do think that in a situation like that, an apology might still be warranted. Because, you know, they did use footage that was not in there, and I mean, true enough, it did help. I mean, I can concede that it did help the gaming community in Canada, and then it got Canada's name out there among the masses. But at the same time, though, I mean, using footage that's not even part of the tournament, you know, or making people seem like, or making it seem like that that Empire steamrolled Canada when it's. I mean, I think that's. I don't think that that's really fair, you know. But again, that may not be all. You know, may not be all Triforce is doing. You know, I would tell Triforce that he should be just a little bit more conscious. You know, that, you know, this is his first time in such a venture, I think. So the next time he does something like this, and when they do a rematch, then, you know, he needs to be more aware of that. So it's not. So it's not so misrepresented. You know. You know, so but you understand that, you know, these decisions does not that these decisions don't rest with Triforce, you know. All right, so actually okay. I think we're just about done here. And I thank everyone for joining us. And I'll be upping this footage shortly. But before I sign off, I do want to give people a chance to call in if they want to discuss anything. The number here is 425-738-6216. I'll be back in just a second. I gotta take a piss. 1 second. Alright. Nothing? Alright, I guess we're done. Thanks for joining us, people. Later.